Another thing to remember is if it's not in writing in Canada, it doesn't exist. I know that there's some cultures out there, and I share them, that, you know, you say you're going to do something, you shake hands, and it's agreed. But in Canada, that is small talk and negotiation. That is not an agreement. So confirm verbal agreements in writing ASAP. Nothing is real, again, unless it's in writing. And have basic business contracts ready. NDAs are crucial. Now for some general advice, and this is a catch-all, but it was brought up several times with my contacts. The mastery of Canadian-style etiquette in professional and personal circles is very important. Canadians are reserved and likely to keep silent if you offend them. However, they will tell their friends and family about you. So if you suspect that you might have stepped on some toes, address it immediately. The best way is with a touch of self-deprecating humor and a quick, sincere apology. No one's perfect, right? And yes, racism does exist in Canada. Even though we're a nation of immigrants, it's subtle, right? And it's systemic, unfortunately, but it will not stop you from reaching your goals. And lastly, embrace everything about being Canadian. Your new home is a beautiful, prosperous, friendly, caring nation. And so, as much as possible, enjoy it whenever you can. And my tip is find a winter sport that you like. It will help. Anyway, that's the end of my presentation, and I thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Angela, for sharing that with us. And I apologize, we've been having some more technical difficulties. We have reached out to hop in to get support as well. So if you can't hear the video, if you're not able to see or have any issues, please reach out in the chat and let us know. And we will be working with the hop-in team to have these resolved as soon as possible. Now we have come to the end of our morning segment, and we're now going to break for lunch. So just to give you a quick summary of what's coming up for the rest of the day. So just after we return for lunch, so we'll break for lunch now. We will return at 12:30 p.m. At that point, we will start with Choose to Challenge Marketing with Mark Campbell and Patience. And we will be followed by E-Commerce Demystified with Teresa. And then our second panel, Women Pushing the Boundaries of STEM. So I invite you all now to take a break, connect via our networking feature, connect with other speakers and members in the chat as well. We will take a break now. We'll be sharing a message from our sponsors as well as some of our startup PL footage during the break for lunch. And then we will resume here on live stage at 12:30 p.m. Thank you again for joining us thus far, and we look forward to seeing you again at 12:30. Welcome back, everyone, and we are ready to get started again for part 2 of day 1 for our International Women's Day event, sponsored and ran by Startup Peel. Now, I hope everybody has had an opportunity to grab some lunch, to get refreshed, and to get ready for part 2. And we're going to jump on into it right now, as I'm going to invite Patrice and Mark, who are going to be taking us through Choose to Challenge Marketing with Mark and Patience. So I'm going to bring Patience to the screen now, followed by Mark. And as usual, please feel free to drop your comments and questions in the chat.
So today we're going to be talking about marketing through COVID. Based on consumer behavior trends and the economic environment that we are currently in, I'm going to focus on the 7 marketing strategies that are proving to be effective during this time. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. First, a quick look at the trends. So digital adoption accelerated dramatically in 2020, growth that's normally seen in years happen just over a few months. We've also seen a change in buyer motivations and challenges. These are the triggers that create the need for your product and your customers. For example, their income, social influences, their health and well-being concerns. We've also seen a move towards what we would call meaningful purchasing. So consumers are looking for more value and meaning in their purchasing. It's not just about the product itself. We've also seen a move towards an expectation for brands to be more agile and flexible. So brands have to be responsive. This also goes towards satisfying consumers' need for convenience and accessibility. Considering it's a health pandemic that's brought us here, it's not a surprise that health and safety and well-being are top concerns for all consumers across the board. All of these trends affect how consumers make buying decisions. And by following these trends, it really informs the strategies that are working in this time. So with that, let's get into those 7 marketing strategies. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. First, going digital. I've mentioned the digital adoption acceleration. E-commerce sales more than doubled in 2020. This means your customers are online, and so your business needs to be there too. Priority should be to ensure that your business has a digital presence that can be easily accessed by a customer. And that can be a website, if not, maybe a social media page or some sort of platform. Even if the purchasing cannot be completed online, it is important to still be online. If you go through to if you use the social media route, it is important to check that you're using the platform where your customers are most likely to be found. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Next, it's about building the brand. Your brand is more than just your logo. Your logo is important because it is a part of your identity, but your brand also includes your marketing message. It's important to be clear on how you want your brand to be seen and also to be perceived. So are you a family brand, a community brand, exclusive brand, fun brand, thought leader? Once you have that clear, you need to get your brand in the consumer's faces. That's creating brand awareness, ensuring that consumers know and recognize your brand. The more people that know of your brand, the better. So even non-customers can help direct customers to your brand, but you need to get your brand in front of them. So this might require for you to invest in some sort of advertising campaigns to build that brand awareness. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Now we have to focus on directing the traffic. So whatever you decide to use as your digital shopfront, so your digital shopfront would be maybe your website or your social media page. Ultimately, you need to direct your customers to it. There's no value in having a website or an Instagram page, for instance, if no one can find it or knows that it's there. That means you have to promote your shopfront, your digital shopfront. You can consider things like SEO, search engine optimization, or Google AdWords. Both can help with your website visibility on search engines. Or maybe you go to the route of email marketing if you've been collecting that kind of data from your customers. If you're on social media, you might also consider doing some paid promos. The objective is that all these will help you to direct traffic to your digital shopfront where you need them to be. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Next, you have creating an experience. In some cases, converting into an online business or a digital version of your business means taking away certain aspects of the buying experience that you created in the in-person environment. The key is to identify how you can replicate a similar experience for your customer in a virtual setting. So that could be a virtual consult, video infomercials, or maybe adding some sort of after-sales contact with your customer. The objective is to maintain interaction and engagement with your customer so they don't disassociate from your brand because that makes it easier for them to switch to another brand. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Supplementary value. This speaks to the trend towards what we call meaningful purchasing. Consumers are looking for more value beyond just the product that they're buying. For instance, if your brand supports things like climate action or women empowerment or some sort of healthy lifestyle, your customer will know that by buying from you specifically, your brand, they're supporting those values or causes, and that is the supplementary value. That can really differentiate you from your competitors. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Creating a community. Your customers are already connected because they share the same need for your product. Often there's also other shared values or beliefs or interests that connect your customers. Identifying and create a community for your customers to connect beyond your product, but through your brand, is a great way to build brand loyalty and trust. Customers will keep coming back because they access a greater community through their engagement with your brand. And everyone, thanks for joining. We have health and safety. Health and safety protocols used to be sort of the concerns of we relegated to industries that we considered dangerous, maybe like mining or construction or firefighters. But now it's top of mind for everyone across industry. It's important to be clear about what measures you have in place to ensure everyone's safety. Consumers want to know how you are keeping everyone safe. So that could be how your processes for making the product at your premises, your staff, and how you're protecting the customer. It's important not to leave it up to news broadcast or public health guidelines. It must be clear and upfront for your customers to see. And everyone, thanks for joining me. So though these trends, these strategies are influenced by the trends caused by COVID, we expect that they will still apply beyond COVID. Our marketing strategies should be treated like a living document, needing to be regularly reassessed and updated. So beyond COVID, it's important to go back and track your buyers' motivations and challenges, how they've changed due to the circumstances that have changed. So that could be the economy, the politics, the social influence. Go back and review your marketing message. Ensure that your key messaging is still appropriate and you're advertising or putting your brand in the places where your customers are most likely to find it. Finally, and most important, which will save you time and money, is follow the data. Track and measure where you're getting the highest return of investment. So whether that's social media, on your website, Google Ads, referral network or marketing, email marketing, events, only spend your resources and time on the platforms that give you the highest returns. And everyone, thanks for joining. That's all we have time for today. I'm here for some questions in the chat before the session ends, but feel free to drop me a message, an email, or connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to talk further about your marketing strategy and how to build your brand. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much, Patience. And for those who have questions for Patience, she is in the chat, so please feel free to reach out to her there. And of course, if you filled out your Hopin profile, you are able to network and to connect your LinkedIn profiles, websites, and other social links with your networking contacts right here on the platform. All right, we'll stand by for Mark's presentation.
Welcome, and thank you for coming to listen to Patience and myself, Mark Campbell. A little about myself is that I've been in the digital marketing stream for at least over 20 years. Worked in various different avenues, different markets. I've been responsible for billions of dollars in revenue for companies in the last couple of years. So this is an area I like to work in, and at least to help and motivate others. Next slide, please. Well, this is an area where we have seen what's been very unlikely what has happened in the last year. And through this global pandemic, it has changed everything from how we go out, how we interact with people, how we do business. And one of the biggest challenges we are faced is that we can't go into stores. And so therefore we have to come up with a different solution. And this is where the art of digital interaction came in, because everyone was online. And that made it an area where it gave the business power to excel and market to people who they'd normally not market to. People have time to look out of their days, because as we know, a lot of people work these 9-to-5 jobs and areas, and they're always on the go. So, I mean, this time you were forced to stay inside and browse and see what's on the internet. Next, please. Growth and development with Campaign Manager. What that really means is that Campaign Manager are tools that help you excel your business in terms of different areas with print, digital, social, and other means of touch points. And in this time where everything has changed, people are looking for avenues how to really promote and touch your different prospects and customers. The beauty of it is digital is an area where you can challenge different areas and push to meet and send information where you would normally not send information to. For example, reaching people in Mexico, reaching people in South America through digital. I mean, you would normally not do that through regular channels. You're not going to do it through TV because that's very expensive, ads and radio. So your best choice right now is digital. And this is the developing strategy. It increases your business size. It cultivates brand awareness. It's trackable. What's one of the main things that people need to understand and how you're working with different areas is how you track your progress through marketing. And if you can't track it, that means you're not really knowing what you're spending. TV is great people, but how do you measure it? You know, they say, oh, well, we will see that maybe 1 million people is online. But what happens is that, where are they? You know, they can maybe pinpoint in seconds, but in terms of finding where exactly in the city, I mean, that's where you need to find out using good trackable programs and platforms. And that's where, like I was mentioning earlier, how a campaign manager would come into play to help manage your everyday spend, your distribution of ads. It's just, it's a great tool and understanding to have. I mean, later, if you're looking to, I'll give out my email. If you look, I will send you some different platforms you guys can use. Next slide, please. Custom digital marketing, clone modeling, connect. This is very important. I'm going to get into this just from a high level. Clone modeling is an area, I'm not sure if you're aware, if you're too in touch with clone modeling, but what clone modeling does is that it will clone your best customer. So a business, for example, as a Best Buy has their best customer, and they say, well, my best customer from 33 to 40, and you do a clone model in your customer, you do a hygiene and all these great things in terms of business, and you realize, no, your best customers are from 41 to 48. And this is what a clone does. A clone actually breaks down the visualization of your customer. So then from there, you're able to go through the universe of data and collect it and find your audience through data management. And by using this tool, now you're able to run a campaign in terms of using different touch points, different social means, different digitals. And for example, you have landing pages, which are very important. We're SMS, social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and where that comes into, your people see an ad, they click on it and say, wow, okay, I like this, and it takes them to thus a landing page. That's why your information is always very important to have on a landing page. This is going to drive your customer engagement, and where it comes back in with the campaign manager, you're able to track and see how long your customers are on there. You're able to see what they're doing, and from that point, it gives you a better understanding where your dollars are going. Next, please. Finding your potential customer. There's a whole slew of people outside, and you're trying to find out where are they? How do you do it? And this is where using clone as well, but there's other means and through different types of processes, which I'll get into next slide. Thank you. One-to-one marketing. One-to-one marketing is a powerful means of digital advertising marketing, how you would reach your customers. It has digital one-to-one, contains several different touch points, how to reach your audience. And that could be through email, digital ads, OTT, CTV, which is over the top, and connected TV. Those are items you would see on maybe if you have a Roku device or Fire Stick, things like that. That would be connected TV. So when you're watching a free movie, you're going to, all of a sudden you're watching and the commercial comes in. That's non-skippable. So that's why it's become very powerful tool of advertising through that. And over the top is when you're it terminates on your phone. So you'll see a video you really want to watch, but hey, you can't watch it until the video finishes. YouTube's prime example of that. It's, it says you have to watch it 15 seconds and things like that. But your marketing strategies through one-to-one are very critical in terms of how do you market to your audience. And doing that is a way, say, I'm not going to market to an entire area if I want to market to, say, Melanie Campbell. I'm going to look for Melanie Campbell or look for people like Melanie Campbell. I'm going to market to them. That's where that one-to-one comes in, and you're able to say, well, most organizations right now, they do marketing to a mass. They just flood out and send out information and hope it sticks. What I've found in my experiences that really work is one-to-one. And how it works is that I will say, I want all the people that look like Melanie Campbell, not physically, but in terms of, I would say, financially or, areas of social. And from there, you break it down and you do your analysis. And this is where, again, you do your data management. There's a lot of tie-in between data management, clone development, and one-to-one, because you're actually enabling the best experience to say, well, this is how it will finish. And this is who I am and how we can market that to that person and be successful through different channels like digital ads, Facebook, LinkedIn, emails, and print. Although print is really not your digital, but it does come down to having, let's say, digital printing, because you're able to print a minimum amount that actually coincides with your offer. It's very important. And you have the geofencing. Geofencing is an area where it's become very prime right now, because I can take, say, people are buying data lists, and I can say, well, out of this data list, is it really good? But then you go back and say, okay, out of this list, I really want to target 20% of the people in this list. So it's going to find the locations, and it's going to put a digital perimeter around the area of your house, and whoever walks in through that threshold, that's who you're going to target. You're going to open up your app on your phone, where they're networking, and say, wow, okay, this is an ad, and you see it, and you're like, okay, this is interesting. So that's how the geofencing works. But it's very good. It's a good tool. It's I've noticed very good responses on that, and it's something where it's not going away. It's going to be a powerful tool in the future. Next, please. Say hello and make it count. Who's your audience? And that's what I was just discussing previously about finding your right customer. And when you find them, what do you do? Next slide, please. It's called brand awareness, client engagement. And through this, you really want your customers, your prospects, pretty much prospects, because you want to get them first and then become your customer. But you want them to really be aware of what you want your brand to represent. It's about how do I look in terms to the public, and from how I see it as my business, say, well, I think my business does this. And then if the public is seeing your business doing something else, then obviously you're not doing a good job in promoting your type of business. So this is where a good marketing plan comes into place, where you have to strategically set it up to say what would work and why is it not working. And this is where you would see using different things like your A and B test. You'd send one out what looks like this, and then send out another creative or messaging that looks this way. And then that's where your reporting comes in to say, well, out of these messages and these ads, this one had 15% lift. This one was really low, only 1%. And you may have another one in there that says it had no lift. So now you realize, okay, whatever the message and content on those ads is not working, then you can shelf it and say, well, the one that gave me 15%, let's go with that. And it's a very, people find it, it's time consuming, but once you set it up and it gets going, it becomes literally it's a $1 million mark, because it helps big time. Where it comes down to all of this with the client engagement is target specific markets, prioritize social engagements, personify your brand, hear and listen. This is a very important area. A lot of times I used to find myself not listening to the customer, and I had to learn to say, okay, what do I got to do? What's happening here? And realize that the customer is telling me one thing, and I may have something else in my mind, and realize, oh, okay, now you're going back to the drawing board, but then you're like, oh, I could have did that the first time. So that's why it's very important, in your marketing ideas, listen what the customers say. You may still have a better idea and concept, because actually that's where they're coming to you, because you're the subject matter expert. But still, listening to them actually gives them empowerment for their own business. They're saying, okay, yeah, this is something that, they get, that they understand me, and they're trying to, recognize me and get me to that next level. And one of the beautiful things is having impactful content. I mean, if you go having a vlog, or going to your website, that's where, having good content, people come and visit, you're trying to market that. They're saying, okay, well, what's the difference? And if you have an updated information all the time, people will come back. And having your customer engagement, you send emails, little snapshots of on Twitter, things you're doing, LinkedIn, all these different areas, your Facebook, you're showing something new all the time, weekly, and keeping that engagement process really good. That's what makes a lot of good companies very successful, because they're always engaging people to get people followed, because they're actually continuously interacting with people and putting out meaningful information. And that's very important. Next slide, please. Understand your customer needs. This is some of the things I'd mentioned earlier, which is really elevating business and brands to expand customer relationships. I read that because it's very important. How do you build your customer relationship? Building customer relationship is offering what they're asking for, what that differentiates you from someone else in terms of how you want to portray and how you want people to perceive you, which I mentioned earlier. Those things come hand in hand. I mean, keeping your customers inspired and engaged is it's not easy, but once you create that art of doing that with your customer, it becomes fun, and actually people will talk more and refer, have you heard of this brand? Have you heard of that? And that's why, different things like Clubhouse, it was successful because, that invitation, people on TikTok, because people like to engage with people. That's why TikTok is very successful, because people like to engage and listen, because people understand what they're doing and say, okay, well, how do I get this to formulate to something else? And it's very important, being from a business standpoint, that you get these points and then you try to listen and then you push out what your marketing needs to be. Tailored solutions. It's, again, something I mentioned earlier, but it's having something tailored to that from a one-to-one standpoint. It becomes more personal. That person feels like you understand them. And that was one of the things from one of the campaigns we did back years ago with Best Buy. We literally marketed to pretty much every type of race were actually in each area. And this was in the United States. And what happened was, it was a great feedback, because people who normally did not receive ads from Best Buy received something. And some of the areas, people say, wow, the messaging on there, we had the copy in Korean, we had the copy in Japanese, we had the copy in Chinese, different Hispanic. It was a really good campaign, but it was something like that. We actually listened to what people were doing. And that's why I use that example, because it's just finding out and creating the right delivery to reach your audience. Thank you. Next slide. Marketing beyond today. What does that really mean? Because right now we have this area of uncertainty. It's certain that things are not going to go back to where they were over a year ago. But now it's like, how do you pick up the pieces? How do you move forward? what do you got to do to take that next level? And it's like one of the simplest forms of doing it from a business standpoint is using digital marketing, because it's less expensive. It's areas where you can do a lot of prime things where you were not able to do like 5 years ago. Because 5 years ago, people thought, wow, TV and radio's good. I have to admit, I'm not gonna put down radio, because radio, you're always listening to music, and music calms the soul. But if you hear an ad, you may be inclined to look at it later. But if you see that same ad now on a digital, you go, okay, because you're touching it, you're feeling it. You see the ad and you go, okay, let me check this out. So that's the beauty of using digital. And for business, it's very cost effective. You can have a lot more reach by using that than using your traditional methods, because print is great, but it's very expensive because of postage. And those are things where people always find to be kind of like a deterrent. But if you can kind of use both of them together and pinpoint maybe from an A and B test, these are where I'm going to go with this. And these people are going to receive this thing, this type of marketing material, and these people receive this. And then you kind of weigh them out. And if you realize your lift on the direct mail was super with the digital, you may still want to invest in that, because you're actually making money. You're bringing customers to where you need to be. If you're seeing no lift, then you don't want to be pushing that out, because you're spending dollars where you don't need to. You can actually allocate that dollars to something else. Pretty much every marketing CMO you'll find, they'll tell you need a very good strategic marketing plan. And it may sound big, but if you really think about it, strategic marketing plan is really what you want to do. How do you want to reach your customer? And if you can take the time to do that and set that up, you'll definitely be able to get your points to another level and start your business off in the right foot.
I know we have a couple of questions here in the chat as well. Someone had asked if there are small businesses, because often we think of marketing, we think of, the $1 billion spend, or, how many $1,000s we have to allocate to it. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to ask, is there an approach that we can take as a small business, especially women-owned businesses are usually starting out really small. Is there an approach that you would recommend small businesses to take as they try to leverage digital marketing strategies?
Sure. Strategy I would use definitely is figure out who are you in terms of your brand? What do you want to deliver? And from there, I would honestly start with digital. I would start with a digital feel, because it's inexpensive. I mean, it's cost money still, but it's not like you're going to say, I'm doing an ad. It's not like massive money. It'll reach your audience. Because you're always on your phone. That's one of the things that's always with you. Normally 9 out of 10 you have your phone with you. Even when you're cooking dinner, you have your photos right there, you're looking at it, you go, okay, what's going on, right? And then from there, but you'll see ads on your phone. You say, okay, but it's reputable, because you could be on a weather network, you could be playing a game like reputably. I'm not talking some underground stuff. I'm talking like, people, it's popular. So, it's not foolishness and things like that. So you click on it, and then TikTok, different things. You'll see an ad pop up there and say, okay, that's interesting. And you'll look at it. But going through those channels, I would start off with say, okay, because through digital on your phone, there's 5 sizes, and information, if you want to email me too, I'm welcome. I'll be happy to send out any information you guys need on it. But there's 5 sizes, and larger sizes, but it works by how you spend, what you're paying for that split second to touch someone to click on that ad on your phone. So that's why the smaller ads, like the 300 by 50 people, it's less money in your spend, but it does not grab their attention. The larger ads grab them. And what we noticed before was on a campaign was that they had, people were clicking on the smaller ads, but they weren't engaging. We noticed 90% of the people who clicked on the larger ads engaged on the landing page, what we set up, and they actually were on there much longer. So it's like, okay, you're seeing where it's coming from and say, okay, well, maybe, the focus is let's try to get buy more of these spaces in terms of the larger ads, because that's where you want people to be, right? You want them to say, you want to drive them to your website. You want to drive them to whatever landing page you set up, because at the end of the day, you want someone to convert. And by converting, right, is what is the end goal, is to convert. And that's very important. I think that's one of the things I would do. In terms of that, I would make sure my website and stuff, like have copy if I'm going to do a blog. Blogs, I mean, they're important. I mean, because what it is, it's like a miniature white paper. And white papers are beyond, and I have to say, on another level. Because if you've noticed something you say, oh, it could be changes in today's financial, and you say, oh, I want to know about that. But for them to get that, they got to fill out the information. So now they've opted in for you to receive information from them. So now they become a potential customer. So that's why writing things and doing stuff on blogs are very important, because you're getting that next level of interaction. And I always find people, they start off with blogs, they have 10 people, then next is 15, 20, 100. Then it's like 500. You're like, wow, but they're doing a lot better. People say, oh, it's only 500. Yeah, but it depends on what they're doing. This is not someone who's on a beach and saying, hey, blah, 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 I'm over here, It's actually someone selling a product. That's the difference. Right. Selling a product is a lot different from someone talking about, oh, I ate some food, this type of food today, I'm on a beach, I'm doing this, I'm hanging with my friends. But now you're selling something. And if you can get engagement, and people come on, now you're doing, what you have is that organic build. People are actually saying, well, check this out because it's important or it looks good. And I've used it and it works. So that's why people always read those little reviews when you buy something, say a pair of shoes, or someone goes, oh, the shoes is nice, but it was a little bit too tight. I'm like, and I have narrow, people just say narrow feet or that kind of stuff, or the jack was too tight. And I'm like, I think of myself as an extra small. Right. So that's like, they're different, but in comparison, it's the same, because you're looking for that review. You're looking for that sense of saying, because you're trusting someone else's opinion. At the same time, you want to be like, oh, okay, I'll look at this and see how it goes. Right. So
sounds good.
I know I blabbed on for that. Sorry.
No, good insight. Good insight. And I see patients also sharing as well. I have just one last question. How can a small business attract new clients? And I know that's a very loaded question, so I'm going to, in the interest of time, cut us down to 2 of your top tips. So as we have our small business owners and even bigger business owners listening, what are your 2 top tips, especially during COVID? And patients, feel free to drop your tip as well, and I will share that with everyone here. What are your 2 top tips to attract clients today, like right now in this post-COVID market that we're in?
Is that a question for me?
That's for you. And then I'll ask patients to drop her thought as well.
This is 2 tips. The one tip I would say is, first of all, clone modeling. Second tip is, once with the clone modeling, then you're going to find out who your customer, who you want to market to. That's the smartest way. I've noticed that way to work 95% of the time, because now you know who your audience is. That's the difference. That's the difference. Right. Yep. All
right. And I don't see patients' tip yet, so I'll wait for that to come up. But I'm going to thank you, Mark, for sharing, and thank you as well, patients, for your video. Feel free to connect with our speakers, Mark and patients. Check out their profiles, hit the people tab, search for them, connect with them on the platform, and connect with them offline as well. Thanks so much, Mark.
You're welcome.
All right, and we thank Mark and patients for their segment, and now we move right along, and we'll be inviting Teresa Slack, who's going to be sharing with us e-commerce demystified.
Thank you so much for being here today. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Teresa Slack, and along with my sister, Connie Smith, we are the owners of Financially Bookkeeping Solutions, the Canadian leaders in e-commerce bookkeeping for Shopify and Amazon. We have a passion for e-commerce, and we love to help our clients to have the financial data they need to make smart business decisions about their finances. Both myself, my sister, and our entire team are focused on helping small to medium-sized e-commerce businesses get control of their finances, have excellent reporting, keep CRA at bay, and hopefully let them sleep just a little bit better at night. We do have a lot to cover in a short amount of time today. I did want to let you know that this presentation has been recorded, but I am here live in the background, and I will be answering your questions throughout the presentation and a little bit at the end as well. Today, we're going to talk about the basics of e-commerce. Then we're going to look at 6 areas that you need to consider when you're starting an online business, or if you want to pivot from a brick and mortar operation to an online business. And then we're going to talk about managing the finances and what makes e-commerce bookkeeping a little bit more complex. And certainly throughout and at the end, I will be answering questions. All right, let's jump in. What exactly is e-commerce? The definition is simply a commercial transaction conducted electronically on the internet. So e-commerce simply means electronic commerce. Did you know that 28.1 million Canadians shopped online in 2019? The 2020 numbers have not quite come out yet, but considering the COVID-19 pandemic and the incredible growth of online shopping, I can't wait to see what the growth was in 2020. Canadians spent $1.85 billion online in 2019. Now let's look worldwide. In 2019, retail e-commerce sales were $3.5 trillion. At that time, they actually expected 2020 to be over $4 trillion. That forecast was for a 276% increase, and that projection came out before the COVID-19 pandemic. E-commerce continues to grow, and with the pandemic, so many businesses are being forced to rethink their business model and to get creative about how they can continue to serve their clients. As well, due to the pandemic, not only do businesses need to pivot, there's also been a huge increase in new e-commerce businesses that have started in 2020. Many are jumping into the online space just to keep their business going, or to have the ability to have an income due to job loss in 2020. Today, we're going to look at how can you make that pivot, or what are the things that you should consider when you're starting an e-commerce online business. If you're thinking of starting online, there's a number of things to think about before you make that leap. You're going to want to take a little bit of time and create an online strategy for your business. You want to look at determining what exactly is it that you want to accomplish when you go online. You want to decide on what products you're going to sell. And I'm going to share with you what I call the 80-20 rule. Where should you sell your products? And what is the right platform for you to sell your products on? And you want to look at how are you going to manage inventory and shipping and navigating the wide world of applications. So let's take a few minutes and touch on each of these topics. Number 1, determine what you want to accomplish. Before you hop online and jump into e-commerce, it is good to have a plan and a goal of what you are actually wanting to do. For example, is your goal to take your entire brick and mortar operation online, or maybe just a portion of it? Are you looking to raise awareness about your business, about your products and your services? Is one part of your business better suited for an online strategy than another? Are you trying to maybe create an international audience for your products? Or are you trying to give your local customers an opportunity to continue to buy from you during these very difficult times? Take some time to lay out your goals and what you hope to accomplish by pivoting to the wonderful world of e-commerce. Number 2, you need to decide what products are you going to sell online. The thought of setting up every single product that you might currently have in a brick and mortar store could be completely overwhelming and probably a little bit paralyzing. So don't do it. Take a look at your products and decide which ones are your hottest sellers and what are those products that are easier to ship than maybe some other products. Use what I call the 80-20 rule. And that means most businesses will receive about 80% of their revenue through about 20% of their products. Focus on just those hot products that you know are in demand. And the same is true if you're thinking of starting an online store. Think about what are the hottest products that you're going to focus on. And don't let overwhelm take hold. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have every single product set up, perfectly photographed with perfect descriptions on day one. I recommend you even start with your top 10 products. Launch your store. And then each week you can certainly add more. Don't feel that you have to have every product up on day one. Focus on just those top ones and then keep adding more as you go. Some other considerations when you're choosing to sell your products online is to be aware of some restrictions around certain types of products on certain platforms or certain payment systems. For example, if you sell tobacco products, those are heavily regulated online. And many payment systems such as PayPal or Stripe, they don't actually allow you to use their payment gateway for those types of products. The same issues can arise when you look at shipping your products. The shipping companies also have restrictions on what they can ship. If you sell products such as tobacco or cannabis or CBD oil or essential oils or supplements, vitamins, or anything called a natural health product, you do need to do some additional research on the e-commerce platform you're thinking about, as well as the payment and the shipping systems to ensure you are adhering to the rules. This is not a complete list, so you want to make sure you do your research before you decide which products you're going to sell online. And that leads us to number 3. Number 3 is, where will I sell my products? There's 2 really key areas here that we want to think about. One is, where in the world do I want to sell my products? And the other is, where online do I want to sell it, or what social media platforms do I want to use to promote my products? Let's start geographically. The goals that you set in number 1 are really going to help you decide here. Do you want to sell locally, or maybe within your own province or within your own country, or do you want to dip your toe into some international selling? Depending on what you decide is going to affect the e-commerce platform you choose, the shipping systems you choose, and most certainly your marketing strategy. If you sell outside of your home country, you're going to have some currency and some sales tax considerations to think about. We will talk a little bit more about that later. Now, we also want to think about, where would you like to sell your products on social media, if it's appropriate for you to do that. You might choose something like Facebook or Instagram, and which platform might be the right one for you. An example would be, let's say you sell a professional service. That might sell better on something like LinkedIn, but maybe some beautiful handmade jewelry or purses, that might sell better on Instagram. If you can, hiring a social media marketer can really help set you up for success. But if that is just not in the budget, I recommend you pick a platform, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is that you're comfortable with, and start there and try it out. And this leads us to our next big decision. Number 4 is, what e-commerce platform is right for you? I want to spend a little bit of time here because there are so many different platforms and they all have their pros and cons, and finding the right one for you is important if it's going to take your business to the next level and allow you to meet those specific goals that you set in step 1. The best e-commerce platform is the one that successfully delivers the outcomes and goals that you have set, not necessarily the most popular one. There are all kinds of different ways for you to sell online, but two of the most common ways are what we would call a marketplace or what we would call a white labeled branded website. Marketplaces are like Etsy or Amazon. You put your products up on their site and your products sell. You're selling on Amazon. It's their branding, their marketing, their advertising, and your individual products on their site. Alternatively, you can use an e-commerce platform where you create your own branded website. It's your logo, your colors, your design, your style, your words, your images, and the entire site is about your business and your products. Some examples of these would be Shopify, BigCommerce, Wix, WooCommerce, and Squarespace. And of course, there's lots more. Let's take a moment and talk about some of the pros and cons between a marketplace and a branded site. So some of the advantages in my mind of a marketplace is that you can quickly get sales happening. You get your product up on their site and sales can start happening pretty quickly. Some of the platforms will actually do your marketing and your advertising for you. As well, they tend to be highly trusted and very credible. How many people around the world shop on Amazon every day? And your products are going to show up in lots of searches, which will help them to sell faster. As well, I think with a marketplace, it's a little bit easier to get up and running. And lastly, in my opinion, the biggest advantage of a marketplace is that you have access to everyone that is shopping on that marketplace. So you don't need to take the time to build your own unique clientele. Now, there are some drawbacks as well to using a marketplace. Number one, of course, you're limited to their branding. If you're on Amazon, you're selling on Amazon and it's their site, their colors, their style. As well, often the payouts are on their schedule. So for example, Amazon pays out every 2 weeks. So they keep your sales money for a couple of weeks before they pay it out to you. As well, their fees can be quite a bit larger because they have created the entire infrastructure, the payment system, the return policies, everything has been designed and paid for by them. As well, they offer marketing and advertising to help you sell your products. So I do find that their fees and the percentage of your sales that they take can be higher with a marketplace. As well, there's definitely more competition. If somebody is shopping on Amazon and is looking for a set of shelves and you sell shelves, your shelves are not the only ones that are going to come up in that search. So you are competing with other sellers on that exact same marketplace. As well, they also have what are called reserves or holdbacks. They always keep a small percentage of your sales for things like returns or disputes. So they're always holding back a little bit of your money. And if your product does really, really well, you may start to see knockoffs or copies of your product show up. So that's not great either. Now let's look at a branded website. Some of the advantages, I think, of having a branded website would be that you have complete control over your message and your website. You're able to create a platform that tells your story and builds brand loyalty for your customers. As well, you usually have more choices around payment systems like credit card or PayPal or Moneris or Amazon or Apple Pay. You have a lot more options usually on a branded site. As well, you also have more shipping options. You can choose different shipping methods and different shipping companies. As well, it's just your products and your business on that site. You are not competing with anyone else on that site. So I think that's an advantage as well. Now, some of the drawbacks of having your own branded website are you do need to have a very solid marketing and advertising strategy. You can build the most beautiful site, have the most beautiful products and the best message, but if nobody sees it, you're not going to get any sales. So when you have your own branded site, having an excellent marketing and advertising strategy is absolutely critical. As well, it can be a little bit slower to get the sales happening because you do need to be able to build up that clientele first. And it can take a little bit longer as you need to build up that site because you are putting all the images, all the words, all the pages. So it can take a little bit longer to get that up and running than just putting some products up on Amazon, for example. I often get asked, do I have to choose? And my answer is this: no, you do not have to choose. There are some benefits of having your products on different channels. It's also important to consider what platform might be the best one for your specific products. So for example, Etsy is great for crafters and artsy type stuff. Amazon is wonderful for convenience products, home goods, and things that you might buy at a department store. Often clients will start out on a marketplace so that they can get up and running quickly and get some sales happening while they are building out their branded site. And often they will stay on both of those platforms or sell on multiple platforms. Here are a few things that you should consider when you're choosing the e-commerce platform that's going to be best for your business. Number one, you want to think about how easy is it to set up and use. If you're going to do your own branded site, how user-friendly is it? Can you do it yourself? Or do you maybe need to hire someone to help you? So then you need to think about what kind of an investment am I going to have to make to get this site up and running? You also want to look at customer engagement and how easy is it for your clients to shop. I always recommend when you're considering different e-commerce platforms to go and shop on them. If you're thinking of using Shopify, for example, go and shop on a Shopify store and see what that user experience looks like. And make sure that you're happy with how that experience is. Because if you're not happy, your clients probably won't be happy with it either. The next thing you want to think about is what kind of support does that platform offer? Does it have 24/7 live support to help you whenever you're working? Or can you just do chat online? Or are they in a completely different time zone and their open hours don't align with when you might be working on your business? So you want to think about the kind of support. You're starting a business. You're busy. You need it to be easy and you need to have the support so that you don't spend lots and lots of time trying to sort it out. The next thing is look at scalability. Based on those goals that you set in the very first step of this presentation, will this platform grow with you? Is it going to serve your needs today, but is it also going to serve your needs in the future as your business grows? Number 6 is SEO friendliness. This means search engine optimization. You want to choose an e-commerce platform that is optimized for search engines. So when somebody goes into Google and types custom shelves, your products will come up. So it's very important that the site that you choose is SEO friendly. Number 7 is mobile friendliness. You want to make sure it's a responsive site that easily switches between phone, tablet, and computer. You can have the most beautiful site on a computer, but if when somebody tries to shop on their phone, it isn't responsive and able to adjust to work well on a phone, the shopping experience cannot be great and you can lose clients. So make sure it is responsive to whatever device people are using to shop. And lastly, and definitely not least, is security. You want to check out the platform you're considering for its level of security. How secure are they going to keep your information and how secure is it going to be for your clients and customers to shop with you? Now, for me, here are kind of my top 10 things that I think any good e-commerce platform should have. Number 1 is a great catalog. You want to make sure that when people shop with you, it has a beautiful catalog. So it's not just a big long list of all your products and a bunch of pictures, but is there ways to put them into collections? Is there ways to sort them and categorize them that make it easy for people to shop with you? So having a really robust catalog, I think, is really important. Next, I like them to have different pricing plans so that when you're just starting out and maybe you don't have a lot of funds, you can kind of get their entry-level subscription to that platform. And then as your business grows and develops, you can move up and get more features with a higher level subscription. I think that's a really good way when you're starting a business. Number 3 is I like them to have the ability to customize the look and feel and to personalize it. You chose a branded site so that you can get your personal message out there. So you want to choose a platform that's easy for you to customize it and make it pretty and make it matter to you. Number 4, I like them to have pre-done templates. I don't like to start with a blank slate. I like it to come with a whole bunch of template emails. Here's the email that'll go to them when an order is placed. Here's the email when it ships. And then you can just customize them. This way you're not starting from scratch, and you can get up and running with your platform much, much faster if they have templates. And then when you have time, you can always go back and customize them, but this gets you up and running faster. Next is I like it to have flexible shipping options. You want to be able to choose different ways of shipping, different shipping companies that suit you, your products, and your customers. And I think no e-commerce platform is complete without excellent analytics on how your business is doing. What products are selling, what's not selling, where are people shopping from. There's incredible information that can really help you hone your business to the right clientele for you. So I think excellent analytics is super important. And number 7, social media integrations. You want to be able to sell on those social media platforms like Instagram or Facebook. You want to be able to have your branded site, but also offer things on social media. Number 8 is, I have to say this because I am a certified professional bookkeeper. No e-commerce platform in my mind is complete without excellent sales tax handling. If you're selling on e-commerce, you could be selling in your province, in your state, in your country, or around the world. And with sales tax, those things change province by province, state by state, and country by country. So you want to make sure the platform you choose has the ability to handle sales tax properly. And number 9, I like them to offer different payment gateways. Things like PayPal, Amazon, Apple Pay, credit card. You want your clientele to have options on how they pay. And lastly, I like them to have an excellent suite of apps to connect with it. Each business is a little bit different and your needs are different. So the core e-commerce platform is one thing, but you want to be able to attach apps that let you customize that experience to your specific business. Another consideration when you're setting up your e-commerce platform is around managing your inventory and your shipping. There are lots of different ways to handle this, but here's 3 of the most common ways. One is what I would call a fulfilled by you. In this model, you have a warehouse or a storage space of your own where you keep all of your inventory. And when an order comes in, you pick it, you pack it, you ship it out using any number of shipping companies, Canada Post, UPS, Purelator, whatever you like. That's method 1. Method 2 is you can also use a warehouse and fulfillment service. In this model, your inventory is actually kept at a warehouse that is provided by your fulfillment company. And when an order is placed on your store, that service will pick, pack, and ship for you. They will charge you to store your inventory and, of course, for packing and shipping your products as well. They also will usually provide you with periodic inventory counts so that you know how much inventory you have on hand, and then, of course, the value of that inventory. Now, another way that you can do it is what's called a drop ship model. In this model, you never actually have the inventory yourself. When an order comes in, the order is sent to the wholesaler or the manufacturer that will drop ship for you. So when that order comes in, you tell that manufacturer or wholesaler and they ship the product direct. So it never comes to you or to a warehouse of yours. When you start shifting from a brick and mortar to an online, you may already have products stored in your physical store. So starting out with a fulfilled by you model may work really well for you. But as your online business starts to grow, that may become very, very time consuming to handle. And you may want to consider using one of the other options or hiring somebody who could do that picking and packing and shipping for you. When you have a brick and mortar operation and you pivot to also having an online store, your inventory control can become a little bit more tricky. How do you track the inventory when you have some of it sitting on a store shelf, but you also have some of it being sold on an online platform? Choosing an inventory control system may become even more important for you. As well, depending on your needs, you may be able to actually manage your inventory right within your e-commerce platform, and then within your brick and mortar, use a point of sale system that is tied directly to that online inventory store. Shopify has a great system for this, and it allows you to streamline the control of your inventory. But there are lots and lots of great inventory apps out there, which brings us to our next topic. One thing that is prevalent in the cloud-based e-commerce world is apps. There is an app for everything, and it can be quite overwhelming, and you might not know where to start. When you selected your e-commerce platform, one of the considerations was that it had a good selection of apps to connect with it. And it's important that you have that flexibility to solve your specific business needs. I recommend that you use the app store that comes with your e-commerce platform. So for example, Shopify has an amazing selection of apps to do just about any kind of complexity in your business. When you're selecting apps, I recommend that you always choose apps that have lots of ratings and reviews. This gives you a much better picture of how successful, well-known, and used the app is. If you're looking at an app and it's only been reviewed by 5 people, and sure, all 5 of them gave it a 5, that's one thing. But how about you look at an app that has 5,000 people that have reviewed it, and a lot of them were 4 and 5-star ratings? This, to me, is a lot more meaningful. And in my opinion, you are much more likely to be successful with that app. When it comes to apps, taking the time to read reviews, both the good and the bad, is worth the time spent. Be sure you understand how the app will help you and what you might need to keep in mind when you're using that chosen app. Now that you have chosen your e-commerce platform and you've set up your brand new shiny online store and the sales have started to roll in, now you need to be able to manage the financial side of your growing business, which brings us to our next topic. As a professional bookkeeper, I could not do a presentation without bringing to your attention a few of the complexities around an e-commerce business that you may not see with a brick and mortar retail store. There are a number of elements about your e-commerce business that are a little bit more challenging. Here's just a few of them. Number 1 is sales tax. If you're choosing to sell outside of your home province, state, or country, you now need to consider the sales tax implications. And every province and every state and every country has slightly different rules. And if you're going to sell worldwide or into another country, you need to understand those rules or hire a professional bookkeeper who can help you with that. Number 2 are the payment gateways. Depending on the platform you select, you may have a number of payment gateways being used, such as credit card, PayPal, Stripe, Amazon, Authorize.net, and the list does go on. Now you need a good method to manage bringing in all of this very important financial data into your bookkeeping software effectively. Number 3 is inventory control. Almost all e-commerce businesses are selling some type of physical product. Not all, but most. And if you have a brick and mortar business, you may already be familiar with the requirements of inventory control, but it can become more complex when you're selling online. Number 4 is getting the sales data from the platform. Every e-commerce platform is different, and all of them were not designed with accounting in mind. So how do you get the sales tax, the fees, the charges out of the platform? Where do you find it in the platform? And how do you then get it into your bookkeeping software without pulling your hair out? Number 5 is navigating the wide array of apps out there. Just like when setting up your e-commerce store, you have lots of apps to consider. And the same goes when it comes to managing the finances. Determining what app is going to be best for you to use to get your financial data into your books can be a real challenge. And it's actually a service that we offer. We help people figure out how to get their e-commerce platform and their bookkeeping talking nicely. And number 6 is getting meaningful financial data. You need to have good quality financial data, and you need your financial reports to give you that data in a manner that's easy to understand and allows you to make good business decisions quickly. We don't have time to delve into these topics deeply today, but at the end of this presentation, I will give you an opportunity to get a workbook that does go a little bit deeper into each of these topics. I did want to quickly share with you just a couple of my favorite apps that we use to bring financial data from Shopify or Amazon into our bookkeeping software. The purpose of a connector app is to avoid all the stuff that we just talked about. Without a connector app, you are logging into various platforms, trying to gather up all of the accounting data on sales, returns, fees, shipping, and then trying to get it into a format that it can get into your books easily. This is what these connector apps do. We no longer have to hunt. The app does it for us, and it speeds up our bookkeeping work tremendously. The one thing I will say is it is very, very important to have a professional help you with those connections. I can't tell you the number of small business owners that we have worked with where they have taken an integrator app, connected to Shopify. Sorry. And messed up their bookkeeping. So make sure you understand how that connection is going to work. There are many, many choices, and there's so many good ones. The important thing is to choose a connector app is that you take the time to really understand how it works and how it connects. And you want to understand the flexibility it's going to give you in the way the data is coming through into your bookkeeping software. With any business, having accurate and meaningful financial data is the key to growth and success. By having a good connector app mapped properly into your bookkeeping software, you will have access to up-to-date, accurate financial data about your business that allows you to pivot, shift, and adjust in real time, keeping your finger on the pulse of your growing business. Since our time is limited today, I wanted to offer you a copy of my more detailed workbook that does go a little bit deeper into each of these topics that we've talked about today. If you would like a copy, I would like you to send me an email at teresa.slack@financially.ca, and I will send you a PDF copy for you. If you need help getting set up for success, Financially Bookkeeping Solutions is here to help. Please do reach out. With millions of people shopping online and thousands of new e-commerce businesses opening every year, getting your business into the e-commerce space can set your business up for success in the coming weeks, months, and years as we all adapt to a new normal. We do have time for some questions. I do want to thank you very much for joining me here today, and I hope you found value in this presentation, and I hope you now have a little bit of a clearer picture on how you can take your business into the e-commerce world. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will definitely have a little bit of time here for some questions and answers. Thank you so much for joining me, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Again, another great presentation. As Teresa mentioned, she's in the chat, guys. She has been very active in the stage chat and even in the event chat as well. If you have any questions for Teresa, please feel free to drop them in the chat here. Now we're just getting set up for our panel to start at 2. So in the meantime, as we get our panel queued up here, we have a message from one of our sponsors, Test Topper, and I'm going to be sharing their video with us now as we get ready for our panel at 2.
Hello and welcome everyone to International Women's Day 2021 by Startup Peel. I am Firzan Mistry and I'm so happy to be with each and every one of you over here. Today, my colleague Kader and I are going to talk to you a little bit about our community at Test Topper. So before we begin, I'd just like to give you a little bit about me. I'm Firzan Mistry and I have about 20 years of experience in marketing. And welcome, Kader.
Thank you, Firzan. I have 20 years of tech industry experience and happy to be here.
Fantastic. So, Kader, let's talk a little bit about Test Topper. What is something that totally inspires you to be a part of this community?
Learning. I learn a lot.
Okay.
And to be more specific, to answer your questions, there's a couple of things that makes me very, very interesting to be part of this community. Mm-hmm. First thing is it is an open community. Mm-hmm. Meaning, right, we all industry experts like you, me, and many others, we come together, govern ourselves, and we run this show together. And we wanted to really give back selflessly to the tech community that is out there. And the second thing that excites me is it is a people-led grassroots movement. Mm-hmm. All people came together. We wanted to help learning from each other, either learn to learn or train to learn. These are the two, most incredible things that I have experienced being part of this community. Now, let me ask you this, Firzan. What is excite you to be part of the Test Topper community?
Okay. So when I learned about Test Topper and I read the values about the community, the one thing that really called to me was the value of continuous learning. So the continuous learning mindset, it's a mindset that we cultivate throughout our lives. But this mindset allows us to remain super relevant in our professional lives today. The world is changing very fast. Kader and I are going to speak a little bit about that in our next questions. But the point I'm trying to make is both professionally and personally, if we continue to learn, it allows us to remain relevant. So, Kader, let's talk a little bit about the impact of the Test Topper community with, the continuous learning mindset.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of used the word relevant, right? That's a key word, mm-hmm. right? We as a individual have to be relevant in this tech industry, mm-hmm. in this market, for us to survive in this market. Mm-hmm. And the market is a very complex market. Why I say it is a complex market? Because we are living in an era of machines, mm-hmm. right? And there are statistics that says that 1 in 5 Canadians will lose job because of machines taking over some of the jobs. So what you and me and all of us as an individual have to do is we have to continuously learn and be relevant in this market. And that's what we do at Test Topper. We really help people to develop the future skills and innovation and become a future workforce of future. In other words, become a part of tech ecosystem future workforce.
That's fantastic. That really is fantastic, especially with the pandemic, with so many women being overwhelmed with the extra pressures at home. And many of us, looking out for different ways of, upskilling ourselves, not only to remain relevant, but many of us wanting to also find new places to work at. Maybe some of us wanting to start new businesses. So how are we helping these women, Kader? Tell us more.
But we help everyone through organizing various programs, right? So I can probably talk about a couple of programs that they can join right away. We have a program called Test Topper Projects, which will really help them to develop entrepreneurship-related skills, innovation-related skills on the tech industry to become an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And that would really help given the situation that we are going through because of COVID. Mm-hmm. And the second program that we have is if someone wants to start from scratch and wanted to get into the tech ecosystem, we have a program called Codathon, and they can join that program and benefit out of that, for example.
I love that. I love these two programs because not only does it help women And of course, these programs are open to everyone. But not only does it help women, it also helps a lot of immigrants who come in to this market and are looking to, work with Canadians, are looking to work with people who are currently professionals in the industry, looking to build their network as well as upskill. So I like that about our programs. Quickly tell us, how can we access the programs?
I mean, first of all, I want to tell you, well said, that's really true. And we need to extend the help to all the immigrants. Now, with respect to your answers, where can you find the programs? Just go to the Eventbrite, Google Testopper. You will see a list of programs, not only the one that I talked about, projects and Codathon. You also will find other programs like Hackathon, Masterclass, and so on. I really invite every one of you to come and join the programs and learn together.
Fantastic. So go to Eventbrite, look for us, find the programs that suit you, and, get on with upskilling yourself, or come to testopper.com and you will find similarly everything on our website. Yes, that's great.
Thank you, Teresa. But, you have asked a couple of questions to me. I have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. What is the greatest challenge as a woman that you found? And what did you do to overcome that? And what would be your advice for similar challenges for others out here?
Right. So I think, I think every one of us faces a lot of challenges, but there are some challenges very specific to women. And so some of those challenges are that I often found myself in rooms and on tables where decisions were being made, but I was the only female representation. And sometimes I was also the youngest person in the room. And many a times I found myself heading teams with men who were, far older or may have had much more experience in terms of seniority, etc. So how did I deal with that? Okay. One is I always go back to learning. I've always found that continuously learning and upgrading myself, my skill sets, and not just the professional skill sets, but also soft skills is very important, right? Because you want to bring people along with you as a leader, as a manager, as someone who works with teams. But also the other thing that I've found very useful is once you learn something, share it. Share it right away. And if you want to increase the representation of women at a table or in a room, then bring more women into that room. Bring more women onto that table. And that will help you create a fantastic community. So I think that's what I did organically, and it's been a great ride. But thank you for that question.
I can relate to that, what you are saying. Bring more women. In fact, because of you, we have really, truly diverse community. Right. And in fact, in some of our volunteer teams that we have more women than men. I'm really excited, and you are truly, a superb, Teresa, for helping us from that point of view. And I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give a single piece of an advice to everyone out here. What that would be?
I would go back to the one thing I've been talking about from the moment we started: continuous learning. Learn, grow, remain relevant, and then help people to become relevant. And surround yourself with people who are good. Build a network of people you help and people who will help you. Not because it's a transactional relationship, but because these relationships are going to help you in every way. Mostly psychologically. So emotionally and mentally, when you have a great network to rely on, you already feel stronger, no matter what life has to offer to you. But also, when you remain in the continuous process of learning, you also feel very grounded in who you are and what you have to offer to the world. And when you come with that confidence, then you can make a big difference, not only to yourself, but to someone else. So that's what I would say.
And I completely agree, Teresa.
Last question, Kader. No, my turn now. Last question.
All right.
How can we leverage other communities and the good work they're doing? Talk to us a little bit about how Testopper would like to partner with others.
It's the end of the day, we are an open community.
Mm-hmm.
The value that we have is also towards openness. Right? So what we believe as a community is the only way we can serve the cause if we have a collaborative partnership with like organizations who wants to provide like selfless giving towards the tech community. And we are always looking for partners to work together for this greater cause.
And how can these partners reach us?
Well, simple. To my email address, testoper@testoper.com. It's easy to remember.
Perfect. That's very easy to remember. And remember, he's our lead volunteer, so you really need to get in touch with him.
Oh, yeah. From the, women side of the story of the Testoper, Firizan is the lead volunteer. So you all have to get in touch with her because she's great in bringing more women into this community, as well as helping every woman that are out there with enabling continuous learning mindset and help in any ways that she can. She's an awesome person. Thank you, Firizan.
Oh, thank you, Kader. I appreciate your kind words. And let's thank everyone out there for taking the time to, be with us today. Thank you very much. And together, we'd like to wish everyone a great International Women's Day and have a great year ahead. Thank you and bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. We want to thank Testoper for partnering with us as one of our partners for International Women's Day and for sharing that very relevant message, helping us to get more women at the table, but of course to advance our skills and to continue learning as professionals and as individuals. I'm now going to turn us over to our first panel of the afternoon, and I'm going to invite our moderator, Laura, to join me here on stage, and she will be introducing the panelists and getting us started. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me okay?
My pleasure. We can hear you just fine. So I see we've got everybody here on screen. So take it away.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this panel, Women Pushing the Boundaries of STEM. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term STEM or need a refresher, it does stand for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. And it's used to refer to education and industries around the world. So first off, I want to introduce myself. My name is Laura Tatham, and I will be moderating today's event. A little about myself. I am a professional certified coach and a talent engagement lead at Flip, which is a retail technology company that helps shoppers provide for their families by making life more affordable. At Flip, I manage all the performance, the growth, and the engagement programs for the organization, and I truly love what I do, which I love. So first off, I'd like to say thank you to Startup PL team for putting this incredible 2-day event on in honor of celebrating and creating a platform for supporting International Women's Day and choosing to challenge campaign theme. I'm honored to be moderating this event and introduce our wonderful panelists here. So we have Andrea McKinney from the town of Orangeville. We have Anna Lee, the data scientist at Strategic Foresight. We have Nir Ben David, founder and CEO of ICaN, and Maloney Campbell. So I'm going to first let each of our panelists have the opportunity to introduce themselves. And let's start with Andrea McKinney. Please tell me a little bit about please tell the audience a little bit about yourself, the work you do at the town of Orangeville and its impact on the industry and community around you.
Sure, thank you. I am the General Manager for Corporate Services at the town of Orangeville. So in that role, I'm accountable for Treasury, Information Technology, Human Resources, Communications, Bylaw, and Customer Service. And one of the key things that we're trying to do is use new technologies to improve the service experience for residents, as well as increase automation across our internal departments to make things easier to do and information easier to access. Part of that also includes working with external vendors, such as one of your sponsors, Iris, where last year we implemented some smart technology in the field that both reduced how much effort we had to exert in monitoring some of our open spaces, as well as supporting, enabling the community to keep those spaces open through social distancing in the skate park and garden community.
Oh, fabulous. That's amazing. really interesting work, and you seem to have a lot of hats, which is exciting. As a general manager, of course, you would. Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining, and we're super pumped to have you. I'm going to pass it over to Anna Lee, and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your work and how it impacts the community or industry around you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction, Laura. Hi, everyone. My name is Anne. I'm a data scientist for TMX Group under the Strategic Foresight team. So that is the Toronto Stock Exchange, as well as the Montreal derivatives of Canada. What I currently work on is everything that has a macro view on the Canadian stock market right now. I also take a look at all the data products that we sell to our global financial services, like the hedge funds and the RBCs, the TDs of the world. I have an engineering background from University of Waterloo, so I guess that's where the woman in STEM comes from. And on my own time, I enjoy like playing chess as well as doing tennis. So that's my personal side. Yeah.
I love that. And honestly, I love that you just mentioned a little bit about you as a human, because I truly believe we bring our whole selves to work. It's very, in this day and age now, it's even more relevant. You're welcome to my living room. So I love that you play those things, and yeah, tennis is a good one. So I'm with you on that one. All right. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to pass it over to Nir to introduce yourself and tell us a little about the work that you do and the impact it has.
Thank you, Laura. And I want to thank also Melanie Campbell for arranging this amazing initiative 2 days in a row. And I'm very pleased to participate all the way from Israel and to support this important event. Participating with the Startup Canada event on the International Women's Day, I think it's important cause, and I'm glad to be able to promote diversity and equal chance both in Canada and in Israel. My name is Nir Ben David, also known by the nickname of Benda. In late 2018, after a long military service career, more than 28 years serving in the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, I pivot myself to the private sector, establishing ICaN. ICaN is a private company, Israel-Canada Strategic Network, dedicated to empower Canada-Israel relationships, the bilateral trade relationships, and personal relationships between the countries. Also acting as Senior Vice President at Israel-Canada Chamber of Commerce, which is a non-profit organization acting to fulfill diplomatic and sub-diplomatic objects between the countries. And I'm very pleased to share my thoughts today with all of you and our audience, both in Canada and Israel and worldwide. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we're super happy to have you here. That's awesome. And thank you. I know you guys are about 7 hours ahead. One of my vendors I work with is in Israel, and I just spoke with them, and they were having happy hour as they walk into their weekend. So I hope that you have a wonderful weekend after this. So thank you again, all of you, for joining. This is a wonderful panel. I think it's super relevant to our world as we continue to build a digital world where STEM is so critical. So I would love to have your perspectives on, and just potentially your thoughts on, what are the greatest challenges that you've faced excelling in your respective careers and industries. And I would like to first pose this to the Andrea and Nir as women, the challenges you faced as women in your respective careers. I'll let Andrea or Nir, anyone who can go first.
Okay, I guess I'll start.
Okay.
One of the challenges I felt that I came across is I was continually having to prove myself. And there was always an assumption I was the most junior person in the room. Not always. That's a significant globalization. Sorry. Several times there was an assumption that I would either be getting coffee or taking minutes rather than chairing a meeting, as an example. And particularly, I moved into the smart city space about 5 years ago with a background coming from really health technology at the provincial level. and having to encourage some of the people who I was working with as external partners to skip past the what is a smart city, sort of the ABCs of it, and get to the heart of it over and over again, to the point that some of my male colleagues found it a bit comedic. So that would be my experience.
Okay. So what did you, how did you find yourself overcoming that, those situations, especially when you're starting the room and you're having to prove yourself in a meeting? What did you say to yourself potentially, or what would you recommend others do to kind of overcome that challenge? Because it's a very big one.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the specific examples I can think of, I just sort of took control of the meeting. I was the chair, so I just said, there was a reference to coffee, and I said, next time you're welcome to bring coffee for anyone, but we won't be providing any today, and let's get started, right? And then once you get to know people, that kind of goes away. And then the most important thing for me is just to learn to roll with it, right? Yeah. So in some of my introductions, I started leading with more of my background to encourage people to start from where they really could be starting rather than an introduction to.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. But I appreciate the thought that you have to prove yourself. And I hope that we can move to a world where we can all appreciate each other without judging a book by its cover. So that's wonderful. All right, Anna?
Well, for me, the challenges that I have is that working in a field that is quite male dominant, you do feel that it's hard to find a female leader that you can really relate and look up to. I do think that right now there's a lot of new programs that encourage women to go into STEM fields, and I'm really grateful for that. I was definitely part of those initiatives. So I joined the Women in Capital Markets for my industry. I also get a chance to do Women in Data and share my experiences. But I do find that there's a huge difference between how women kind of go towards new challenges and how men do. I tend to find that sometimes I myself even shy away from new opportunities, whereas my guy friends would typically take the risk and also go for it. So I think it's a combination of external and internal factors too. The thing is that you should always continually push yourself to do greater things, but at the same time, not having that external environments, like not seeing a leader that is female or someone who's very high up in the industry, really does show me less of what I can achieve.
Absolutely. Wonderful. You mentioned a lot of initiatives, and I'm really excited to dive into that a little bit more, potentially after. I want to hear about those initiatives, especially locally, to encourage others. I think those are wonderful things that we can shed light on. So thank you. All right, and Mir, I would love to understand. You have a lot of military background too, it is very male dominant. I would love to understand the challenges you have faced, but also what you have also seen other women face in your career and journey through the military, and even what you do now.
As the only male in the room now on this panel, I would like to capture this situation and to give a little bit overview about the way we did, all the way from being far behind on equal and now moving forward to our objective goal to the future. I think in recent years, Israel and Canada has secured their positions as startup nation from one side and Silicon Valley of the North from the other side, functioning as the world's most developed technological epicenters and a talented pool for human resource, and enjoying tech and entrepreneur as modern powerhouses to their economics. I think these two countries are both modern democracy countries in where those who work hard can better themselves, regardless of the gender diverse that except this last years and years ago. When women hold position in government, and medical professional education and clergy, now we see more and more women moving toward the business sectors and entrepreneurship and becoming more prominent on those fields. Saying that, we are still seeing a low number of female and women dominate in the leading roles in new companies, startup companies, and initiatives from both Israel and Canada. The numbers are still low, but in the movement and the flow to raise the statistic to be 50% men and women. Military service is one of the cultural elements, of course, that are very important. I can see few scales and few flows from childhood, school, elementary school, all the way to the industry. Of course, military service is one of the basic phases that mature people see themselves as equal one to each other. Of course, the situation geostrategically, Israel and Canada have is different. The place the both countries have started from are much different, and the environment each one of these countries, Canada and Israel, is involved in is very much different. Saying that, we can see a growing number of women serving in major roles in the IDF and CAF, taking position, leader position, and fighting positions, as well only for male to be open. Now reopen and open new positions for female to take place in. And yesterday, I think it was the vice CDS appointed in CAF stepped into the office. I think first time we can see a general in a second position in CAF, Canadian Armed Forces, hoping to see that in the future in the Israeli Defense Forces. But we can see more and more women in fighting positions in the front. More and more women are serving in equal position to men, and more women are advancing in their military roles as much as the same male are doing and did before.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate you mentioning more and more women not only coming in to the roles, but also advancing. So there's two stems to that, and it's really getting a market to have people join, first of all, and then also to be able to progress those individuals into leadership roles. So thank you for that. Now, I do have one more individual that is joining our panel who's coming in just a little bit late. Her name is Claudia McKoy, and I will let her introduce herself as soon as she comes live. And I think our team in the back is going to be getting her live in just a second. So I'll give it a moment. Technology these days. All right. Okay, she may be on screen. I just don't know. Is she here? All right, we're going to continue on without her. Okay, so thank you for your thoughts. And I mean, these challenges, I truly believe that we're not siloed in those challenges. There are challenges happening to women all over the world. So if you had to give a piece of advice for all women listening out there right now, what would it be to not only get into those roles in the STEM world, but also to progress and move forward in their careers? I will start with Anna.
Yeah, so I think this is a general advice for everyone too, not just female specific, and then I'll go on to talk about the female specific ones. I think that the most important thing for anyone to progress in their career is to learn as much as possible and contribute value to where you can. And for my own career path, I stumbled upon this when I was trying out a bunch of different things in university. I started school thinking that I would go to medical school with my engineering degree, but from doing a bunch of activities outside of school, joining the finance club, and then eventually doing a few stock pitches and trading competitions, I realized that I have a knack for the stock market. And that was where I really discovered my career path and what I'm truly interested in. So my recommendation to everyone is that try anything that you think you might like. Do it as many things as possible. Take extraordinary amount of risk when you can, and learn quickly from your mistakes. And only then when you can really know what you truly like and what you really want, and continue to make connections with people, like putting yourself out of your comfort zone. And for the female specific advice I have is that I find that a lot of my female peers are really shy as compared to my my male friends, and that's just a reality. I think that we need to step out more, do more things. I think statistics have said that women would only apply to a job if she feels that she's 100% capable of doing the job, like match every criteria in the job description. But male actually apply when they only match 2 to 3. So I think we should really change our mindset. Take the mindset that we will learn it when we get the opportunity and the job. We don't have to be perfect. And I do think that society does put a pressure on women to be perfect in a certain way. We can shift our thinking and try and do more and take more extraordinary amount of risk so that we can have a really good long-term returns in the future.
I love that. And honestly, I have this mantra and it's sitting right in front of me, but it's progress, not perfection, right? So you gotta stay relevant and progress and move forward and fail and get up and try again and keep going and trying not to be perfect. And that it's really this agile mindset that we have to adopt. So wonderful advice, Anna. Okay, Andrea, I'm going to tailor it over to you. Do you have any advice for individuals of all kinds, but also of women specifically?
Sure. My advice would be afraid. Take risks. Do the things you think you might not be able to do because you can do them. And be careful with the self-talk, because no one is thinking about you the way that you're thinking about you. So try to be positive, and then you will be positive, right? Because that is a big gap for women. And it just, building on what was just said, that's exactly right. It's, I'm not perfect and I'm not going to. Whereas men are thinking about it that way. They're like, oh, of course it is. And a lot of friends who are level.
Absolutely.
So I think that's really helpful. The other thing, if I can just add, is that I've always had the opportunity to have women in leadership to look up to. And so if you feel like you don't have that, then you have to focus on becoming that. Because there's a bunch of people who came before us, and there's a bunch of people who are going to follow, and we need to keep filling that void.
Absolutely. Oh, wonderful advice. Thank you. Yeah, and I love that self-talk. There's a book called Taming Your Gremlins that I was reading. And honestly, it truly is like you have this negative self-talk that comes up. And you really, I think, it's one thing to say, like, don't have it, but it's also just noticing it and saying, that's not right. That's not how it should be, or not. That's not how I should feel, or that's not what other people are thinking of me. I'm creating this like bigger problem in my head than it actually is, and keep moving forward. So I appreciate that one. Very good question. And Nir, do you have any thoughts on this about giving advice to women to getting into the industry of STEM?
Sure. My advice will be to any entrepreneur, not only for women, but also for men. It always was for me hard work. Work hard. Don't give up. Keep on going after getting no for an answer. Don't give up. Whenever there is a chance for you to succeed, it will take the long way for you to do that.
Absolutely.
When people close the door on your face, come back from the window. Don't give up. Work hard. Eventually, you'll succeed.
Beautiful. Well said. So in just stemming off of all this, I would love to understand, how can more women embody the representation matters so more women can move past imposter syndrome and negative self-talk? So that imposter syndrome is a real thing, and I've had it this year. So I'd love to understand if anyone has any thoughts on this. If you don't, that's okay.
Oh, I actually have a few points on that. Yeah, I think imposter syndrome happens to everyone, but if you want to improve on your imposter syndrome, my way of doing it is continually learning and increasing your knowledge so that at one point you'll feel more confident and secure about what you're doing. And I think everyone goes through the phase of having that imposter syndrome, but it's really what you do about it when you have that feeling. There's no way that you can learn everything that there is to know in the world, but by trying hard, asking the right questions, being open-minded, that's the best way to really go about it. I have a degree in engineering, and when I came to finance, I always thought, like, I don't have the same amount of financial knowledge as everyone who actually majored in finance. But after feeling that way, I took all of my time and efforts into reading all of the financial market books out there, studying on my own, take courses. And now when speaking to my boss, I'm probably one of the most knowledgeable person around my age about that. And I feel confident enough to even pursue hedge fund projects and trying to build my own company around that. So I don't think having an imposter syndrome is a bad thing, but it's how you go about keeping that feeling.
Absolutely. That confidence piece, that learning and applying that learning to making it relevant in the role that you're in. Wonderfully said. Does anyone else have any thoughts on how more women can embody the representation matters, so more women can move past imposter syndrome?
Sure, I can give you a personal story. I was approached for a pretty significant volunteer capacity for an organization that I always wanted to be a part of. And at the end of an interview, the chair of the board says to me, we came to you. If we hadn't, would you come to us? And I said, I've always want to participate, but I just didn't feel like I was qualified. And so I thought it was something I would do in the future. And she said to me, have you looked at your resume? And I said, well, yeah, I wrote it. It's like, I think you need to take a step back and look at the things you're doing and build yourself up a bit. And she specifically referenced imposter syndrome in that conversation. And she said, women need to stop thinking they'll be qualified in the future, because a lot of them are qualified now, and that talk is holding you back today.
Wow, that's so informative. And have you looked at your resume? Yeah, I've been living my resume. I've been doing the things. And so interesting you say that. I've had a similar conversation, and someone said to me, you can connect the dots. You can do it. You have the tenacity, you have the ability, and that's it, like being able to connect all the knowledge that you've learned over the course of your time in school, experience, the 70-20-10 model, social networking, all that, and bringing relevant content to the conversation and to the job. I think absolutely you're right. We have the ability to do it, all of us as humans, but more specifically, we need to build the confidence for women to do so.
And it's interesting because Andrea just mentioned another important point of the importance of women role model one to each other.
Yes.
Because when you approach this opportunity and she gave you the tools to be confident in yourself, she just show you the way to do the right thing and the right step ahead. The importance of role model in entrepreneur, in business, in VCs, in STEAM, everywhere, it's critical these days to allow more and more women to be confident with their abilities, capabilities, and to move forward with their career.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And yeah, mentorship is a massive discussion these days, and how important mentorship is. But of course, we're finding that that there's not enough individuals to build into leadership roles, we need to start getting them into the STEM industries so that we can build up into our leadership roles. And so having that mentor, I'm sure, was just absolutely just validating and supporting your confidence in moving forward with that role. Am I correct? Yeah. So, Nir, I would love to have your perspective from a male's perspective on confidence and how if you've ever had a moment where you were not feeling confident and how you maybe overcame that.
I had many points in my life that I wasn't confident in. But I think you need to be in two sides of the stick, whether you're an optimist or whether you're a pessimist. If you're a pessimist, you will bang your head every time and go back. If you're an optimist, you'll bang your head in the wall, but you'll move forward to the next wall. So from my point of view, whenever you feel like disappointed, wherever you feel with no confidence or lack of knowledge, first be modest, learn the way, learn new things, open your mind, get a role model and mentors like you mentioned. I'm very believe on that. It can be a strong point for you to lean on and to show you the way. And from there, you can take it to your own way. People appreciate new ways, new points, new ideas. And I think that's the importance of your confidence in yourself, even though you are in a roller coaster as an entrepreneur, going up, see the successes, going down and fail. If you cannot combine those two points together, don't be an entrepreneur. Just go to work for someone else. If you want to be an entrepreneur, be able to catch all those moments, the good ones, the bad ones, into yourself and move forward, advance yourself with every experience you have on the way.
I love that. There's a saying that failure or fail stands for the first attempt in learning. And I think that's a great little acronym there because it truly is. It's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be always peaches and roses and butterflies, and there's gonna be moments that are really difficult. But you just gotta continue on and press forward. I'd love to.
I learn a lot from my failures. I'm failing every day.
Oh yeah, totally. And honestly, failure. I love failure. It means I'm learning, right? So it's important for sure. So I would like to steer the conversation a little bit to the STEM programs. And has anyone on the panel observed some inefficiencies when it comes to inclusion of women in the STEM programs? So getting individuals into STEM prior to the even workforce, right? So the programs itself. Anna, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, like a field like finance definitely has a lack of females, and we have spent a lot of efforts in trying to get more women in STEM. We have the Women in Capital Markets Society. We also reach out to schools at a very early stage for the diversity programs, but it seems that we are still not getting the percentage that we're looking for right now. I think it's around 10% of the finance industry professionals are women, and the ones that are, if you look at an entire firm, it might be 40%, but 30 to 40% of them are in administrative roles, and they're not really in the more prestigious and challenging roles in the organization. So the finance industry, we are actually trying to increase the funnel even more by going for the high school students, telling them about those career paths then and there, and trying to push more girls into the fields. And even when as times go on, you can see that there's also the glass ceiling that's still going on. We have increased significantly the funnel of women coming into, let's say, a first-year associate or analyst class. But as you get to the managing director levels, it seems that that number continues to fall off even further. That gives only 1% to 2% of the entire executive class that are actually females. And these things are very hard to actually fix because the promotion and the culture around finance is still a bit of a boys' club. If you want promotion, you need to network, you need to go to like the Fridays nights and grab drinks, and that might not be something that women who are interested in those things would do, or even like people like men who have family that are not interested in that. But it does favor that, and that's just real life. And if we have more women, I think we can change that culture, have that more diversity and inclusion. But it's good now that everyone understands how important diversity is for any type of industries. That's because women actually has been proven to be better money managers. They are more careful, they're more meticulous, and they can give better results. So in turn, like, VCs have actually tried to invest in more companies that have female founders so that they can actually have better returns. So these things are actually quite correlated with the success of the companies, and companies are trying hard to do so, but it will take a lot of efforts and time, and encouraging women to chase after these as well.
Well, that is a wonderful, wonderfully said. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. Does anyone else want to remark on this off of Anna?
I think we're still seeing low numbers of women engaging with STEAM, but the line is positive. So we see progress coming, and I can see two main key advantage for the near future, helping us, assisting us to move forward to the right direction of 50-50%.
Yeah.
Two main elements. One is government and private sector programs and resources available for women, aiming to bring us to 50-50 equal in the near future, let's say 10 years from now. I wrote myself a few programs I'm familiar in, like She Codes, Supersonas, Queen Bee, Shift, Women on Stage, and etc., Canadian and Israeli programs aiming to change this. And it's time to do that, and we're in the right progress to do that. It's a positive movement. The second issue will be COVID-19. COVID-19 gave a huge boost and a huge opportunity to change a few criteria which were very difficult in recent years, especially work-life balance culture, because now men and women can do the remote work in different time zones, different time of the day, with children around the clock, with families, with their objective goals in business. And I think COVID-19, with all the bad things happened on this specific issue, I think it's a good way and a good opportunity for us to advantage the new normality we just entered through last year and to progress that, to boost our programs and to give equal chance to everyone.
Absolutely. Well said. That's great. Yeah, I do think there is we've entered a new world that has accelerated our need for this, not only from the past events that happened in 2019 and 2020, but and continue to happen in 2021. But there's just a larger light for this and how our new ways of working have provided us this opportunity to really have men and women have equality in that regard. So I would like to quickly step back from this question and quickly introduce Claudia McKoy. I apologize. I know there was some. It's been very windy today, so there's some for sure. But I'd like to have you introduce yourself to the audience and let us know what you do and how your work impacts to the community around you.
Well, thank you. First of all, I have to say I've been able to listen to the conversation, and it's amazing. My name is Claudia McKoy. I am the principal of the principal at Upsurgence. It's an engagement firm, and I work a lot with various different communities. So I get to see little bits and pieces of what different organizations, what different communities are actually confronting STEM and promoting entrepreneurship with different types of communities. And one of the things that I definitely gave me a great insight around this question is my partnership that I had with OCAD and Sidewalk Labs, where we worked with deaf communities to actually try to create deaf-friendly societies. And so this creates an interesting lens around the concept of women being entered into STEM, and also women, communities of women of color, because you see when you combine accessibility issues, when you combine issues around various advantages within communities, when we can't just simply say women and men. We have to say communities of women and communities of men, because various different communities of various genders have very different experiences and different access, right? As a woman who's identified as a Black woman working with the deaf community, I saw privilege and oppression in a different lens, right? That I mean, it's one thing to, being visibly identified in a community, but then may not having that, but being deaf and being treated a certain way, or automatically taken out of communication or out of the discussion altogether. Especially when you have other communities like women, and I'm going to be put that as the standard mainstream concept of women, is fighting just to get equality as well. So we often forget that there are women who are also disadvantaged because of accessibility, structural disabilities. And then within this, then you have those levels around marginalization based on ethnicity, visual. So these are all complex intersectionalities that when we start talking about access, we have to kind of force ourselves, especially when we feel the wind at our own faces, to bring back to the forefront. So those are the kind of work I like to do around really thinking and engaging around the concept of entrepreneurship and various different intersectionalities around inclusion.
That's amazing. The intersectionalities, I think we always have to be extraordinarily mindful that our experiences are not other people's experiences. And whenever you are even just generalizing one group of individuals, you can't, because within that community, there's sub-communities, and there's even sub-communities within that community. And what's beautiful about the human race is that we're all individuals, and the individualization that we do have and the value that we can bring to our workplaces is so individualistic. And I personally love all humans and think that we are wonderful beings. So I appreciate you bringing that awareness into the conversation, that no matter whoever we're talking about, there's going to be smaller subgroups of individuals with different disabilities or abilities and different experiences of marginalization. So thank you for joining the conversation. We're super glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I'd love to come back to that and just ask your experience of any inefficiencies that you've observed when it comes to inclusion of women in STEM programs, and if you have any thoughts on how to improve those.
A few inefficiencies. One, even within the individual, when we talk about picking up on your theme of individuality, if you have always been socialized historically and within the home to think of a certain set of jobs is your limitation. So the history of many Caribbeans immigrants was that the health, particularly nursing, was a big thing among women, right? Caribbean women. So now you have that engine, that wind constantly. This is the way to go. Now to say, hey, it's safe to venture out here too, or even take health and apply it into a more entrepreneurial if you don't have a background in that, and if it doesn't feel safe, and you feel like the margins of error is for you personally is so small, you're going to go to the safest bet. That may not be that safe over time as technology builds out, right? Mm-hmm. So the inefficiencies also starts with just, we talk about the glass ceiling. There's also the mental ceiling that we need to break, right? To actually cross over. And as women, we know this, right? The concept of like just taking it, not waiting for someone to say it's okay, right? That's a socialization process that creates inefficiencies in and of itself. Again, language and inclusion and making sure that we have the stakeholders around the table so that we don't start off things without having all various stakeholders around the table so that we could see our blind spots. The great thing about being human, as you pointed out, is that we all have blind spots and we all have really good areas of really great vision. So if we can to remember that diversity isn't always, it may be clumsy at the beginning, but it actually creates stronger, better products and better innovation and more disruptive innovations.
Absolutely. I think what we all, with focusing on diversity and inclusion, that we're going to get it wrong. There's going to be people that do get it wrong, and that is okay. We can correct ourselves, we can learn, we can grow. So that's fantastic. Thank you for bringing that to the conversation. Fabulous. So I would love to understand a little bit about Andrea. Can you share some success stories pertaining to women in STEM in the town of Orangeville? What has Orangeville done in this area, and what specific tips do you have for leaders in Peel?
Sure. So I'm just going to start by saying that our finance team is 100% female. Treasury is female. Her deputy is female. So we do have females on the IT team too. From a diversity perspective, we have a very strong female representation at the management level. And I've been there a little less than 2 years, so I can't say, that's a credit to any kind of purposeful planning, other than I think they really focused on hiring the best candidate at the time. And they didn't have an entrenched succession planning that I've seen other places where it's like the next 3 generations of the directors kind of picked out before you even come in the door. Right?
Yes.
That does kind of happen sometimes in succession planning. It's long before the person's moved on. They know who the next person is. It's not really an open competition.
Absolutely.
Right?
So when there's someone coming in the door, there's no room for them to grow into that director position because they've already selected somebody.
Yeah. So that Orangeville doesn't have that environment. So I think that's very positive. And then in terms of creating more of a platform, I'm going to reference my provincial experience. We had a lot of female leadership, and there was definitely intersectionality. There was diversity in that representation, and there was a focus on diversity. And they put a purposeful effort into building female networks, creating women in leadership opportunities, sponsoring people, identifying young women who they thought were high potential, and grooming them. And I think that played a big role in, seeing as being and building that confidence. So that, I think, is something that we can all learn from.
That's fabulous. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. I think seeing is believing. So when you start to have those individuals at the upper leadership level, you can also aspire to look and be in that role as well, because you can see it. I love that. I'm going to pass it over to Nir. Can you talk about the resources that ICaN provides for women that are looking to get into the STEM areas? How different is the ecosystem in Canada versus Israel?
Ooh, it's a huge question. Thank you for that. ICaN promotes the bilateral relationships regarding to any gender perspective or general issues. We're promoting entrepreneurships. We're promoting and providing strategic business development services to startups and high-tech companies. And we see women and men equal to the table, equal to the chances, equal to the opportunities. For my takeaway will be networking, communication, and communities built by women. I think this support group, even though it's support group seems like a terrible word to say, but I think in this phase of life we are into growing the numbers, role modeling, mentoring, as we do in ICaN, as community do, as women do one for each other, as the example Andrea just gave us, encourage more and more women to step forward, and not only women, any inclusive, any society, minority society, any other society need to move forward to be equal. We need to stand up for that. We need to support that. We need to give the resources. I mentioned before the programs, federal and private organization, education program from school, elementary school, high schools, high academic levels, military programs, and the industry programs. All of those wrapping up the future to come. I believe that in the future, we won't need those organizations, those programs, those resources, as we won't see any difference between anyone in the world. It's a vision. We set the milestones. We know our goals, objective goals, and we just need to push forward 1 year in a time to be there. I believe we'll be there. I'm an optimist, I know, but I'm sure that's the way we'll do. And we won't see those programs in 10 years from now. We'll sit back and see and say, where are those programs left and gone? We won't need them in the future.
No, that's excellent. And, I think it's what you've mentioned is that you bring awareness to where you are. If there's not an equal representation, if you do not have diversity and inclusion, you need to do a needs analysis. Do we need to focus on here? Bringing awareness is the first step. And then saying, hey, where do we want to be? Setting up some targets and really putting intention into building that. So thank you, Nir. That's wonderful. So I know that we are coming close to our time here with the panelists, but I would love to know, Anna, what got you into STEM? What was the driving factor for you? Is there anything that you would recommend others looking into, or did you have a unique experience?
I think in high school, or even when I was just a little girl, I have always wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to do cool experiments, discover things. My idol at the time was Marie Curie. So to me, I always wanted to do something very intellectually stimulating. And I only found out that it was a male-dominated field as I got into university, because in high school everything seems to be pretty balanced. But when I got to university, I decided that I am just as smart, and I do see that in my coursework and my results as well. So I don't see why it should be stopping me from any of this. And I saw that it was a huge opportunity as well. To me, going somewhere where it's not the norm, you're actually pushing boundaries and you can get a lot more opportunities that way. So I did not deter from that challenge of, I think it's quite exciting to have to prove myself amongst all of these male-dominated field as well. And to me, that's very gratifying. Moving forward, I think women should try to embrace that more, and being able to use their own way of smart, not having to compete on all the things that you think that you have to compete on with men. My perfect example of this is the movie Mulan. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there was a scene where she was competing in the military, and they have to retrieve the arrow on the tallest column that they had there. But she did not use strength and brute force like everyone else to try and get that arrow and climb that tallest totem pole. But she decided to use her smarts. So she wrapped the column around with her sleeves and then climb up very slowly and surely. So kind of the same thing. Like women and men are of course very different creatures. We're a bit more petite, but it doesn't mean that we can't do things just as well, but we have to find our own ways of doing it.
Oh, wonderful. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you speaking to your experience before, like as a child. That's something you've always been wanting to do. And it's because you had the exposure. So I think as a society, we have to, based on that response, I think we really do have to bring exposure to men and women and children and boys of all genders, of all types, to the exposure of that they can do anything, they can do hard things, and they can get into those interesting and amazing the field of STEM. So having the exposure and having the kind of boost of confidence as well can really build that. So thank you, Anna. And I'm going to pose our last question to Claudia. I'm going to leave it a little bit open to you, but what effect, or actually, you know what, I'm going to say, what is the biggest challenge that you've seen in the STEM at this moment in time, and that you want to partake on the audience?
Well, that's a big one. You know what? I think it's just our willingness to embrace the largest and the most transcendent sides of our imagination. If we truly are willing, that's a very difficult thing for humans to do. But if we do it, we transcend concepts about equality, and we start looking at things as collaborators. We start looking at how we can achieve contributing as opposed to who I'm not equal to, or what a fake measuring stick. So if we can embrace the transcendental, and some of my people that I've read and studied were, the Joseph Campbells, the Marshall McLuhans, those people who are looking at transcendental thinking. I think that's difficult to do, but we need to do it because we have the resources, we've got the tools, we've got the abilities to do it. We have an obligation to transcend.
I love that. And I think the obligation piece is, as a society, and companies, we have an obligation to support diversity, inclusion, and individualistic people. And I agree. So thank you so much. We have to wrapping up. We could talk for so much longer, I feel, on these topics. I want to say thank you to all of our panelists for coming and sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate your time. Again, thank you, Startup Peel, for having this wonderful event, and we hope to see you all soon. Have a wonderful day.
And thank you again to that amazing panel moderated by Laura. We had such a great conversation. I know we didn't want it to end, but unfortunately we have to make way for yet another exciting conversation. And this one, I think for many people, they have also been looking forward to this one all day, and that is the Fireside Chat with Women on the Move. And what a great time to bring it on after we talked about so many challenges and overcoming those with women in STEM. We also spoke this morning about combating isolation and emotional wellness. So I think it's a great way now to top off our afternoon, talk about women on the move. How can we continue to be on the move? And if we're not already on the move, how do we get ourselves on the move so that we can really, choose to challenge whatever our challenge is going to be? So I'm going to be inviting our panelists now. I believe we have them just standing by backstage here. So I'm going to invite Miryam now to join us as the moderator, and she's going to be introducing her panel. Hey, Miryam.
Hi, Aldine. Very good. Thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah, no worries. So I understand either you or Colin or both of you.
Colin. Colin,
it's Colin. Awesome. All right. So we're going to be inviting Colin back. Well, we've got our panel backstage. So I'm going to invite the panel on to join us as we go into the fireside chat. as we wait for Colin to join us here on camera, I'm going to invite Giselle, who is here. We've got Yvonne coming on as well. All right, so I am going to make way for Colin at this point, and I'm going to let you lovely ladies start by introducing yourselves, and then by that time I believe Colin would have joined us. So Miryam, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Miryam Lazarte. I'm the CEO of LatAm Startups. We are a nonprofit organization, accelerator incubator based in downtown Toronto. So we work with international startups that are relocating their companies in Canada.
All right, and I'm going to invite, I believe, okay, anybody can go next. Who would like to go next?
Giselle, you go ahead.
Sure. I'll give you the short version of what I'm doing currently. So I run 2 companies, but we can get into that later. I'm currently founder and general partner at Matter Ventures, and we're a venture capital fund that does venture capital differently through a number of methodologies, and we invest in Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and women, what we refer to as underestimated founders.
I'm Yvonne, Ruke, Akpoveta. I'm a change management strategist. I work with organizations to help them lead, drive, and manage change. Also the founder of the Change Leadership, where it's a curation of events, conferences, content, and courses. Our focus is really all around change leadership advocacy as a skill for now, in order to better respond better and faster to change. It's all about, when change is done right, there's a benefit to employee mental well-being, the economy, the community, at large. And so my passion is change. Don't tell me to change, but ask me how we can help other people change. That's a different story. Nice to meet everybody. Vickie, I believe you're next. We're introducing ourselves. We're introducing ourselves while we get Colin to join.
Perfect. I'm Vickie Joseph. So I'm from Montreal, Quebec. So am I the only one from Quebec having a French accent here? I guess so.
We love the French accent.
Okay, bear with me. So I'm Vickie. I'm the co-founder and president of Vickie Cosmetic International, which is a complete collection makeup line for women of color. I decided to launch this line back in 2017 because there was a lack of representation on the market. So we wanted to create a brand from made in Canada, from here in Canada, which was really important because the brand, the name, the credibility of Made in Canada is very strong right now around the world, across the globe. So we really wanted to make sure that we cater to that market, and also that we create and empower women also throughout the process, which creating other women to partake the story of taking place as a feminine enterprise, and to create other champions, women that are out there looking out to they're inspired, but they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to take their space, or even young girls that are just looking, but they don't have any role model, in order to create their own dream and own story. So with Vickie Cosmetic, we are a creator of other women, empowering women to take their space and their voice and to share it out there. So we are definitely in the move. We really want to take our place on the shelves everywhere and create a place for other women of color to partake of this huge mission. It's a beginning, it's getting better, but we have a lot of work to do. So this is 2-part, a beautiful product line, but also a mission to empower other women for the diversity.
Amazing. I apologize. I was a little late jumping on. Some technical issues there, mostly self-inflicted, so that's on me. But you don't need me. You just got this thing rolling already here. But thank you for letting me join.
Of course we need you. Of course we need you.
There we go. I'll jump in here. We're all entrepreneurs here, so this is great. Miryam just jumped in there. We just make stuff happen. Things go wrong, we just fix them. That's the way we roll, which is amazing. So you already showed how you could be nimble and agile on your feet there with just making this thing happen. so thank you very much for that. So just want to quickly introduce myself. I'm Colin Weston. I wear lots of different hats in the entrepreneurship space. One of them as the community builder and co-founder of Startup Vancouver. So like my good friend and colleague, Melanie Campbell from Startup Peel. So I'm the equivalent of her role here in Vancouver. I want to thank Melanie for inviting me today. I have a special attachment to Peel and Brampton. Even though I'm in Vancouver, I am a Brampton boy, born and bred. So I spent the first 25 years of my life there. So I have a definite emotional attachment, and it pains me that with COVID, I can't get back there to see my dad and see my family and Melanie. So hopefully that'll happen very soon. So since I jumped in midstream here, I know that Vickie, you introduced yourself. Yvonne, I just wanted anybody else, Giselle or even Miryam, perhaps the rest of you can jump in and introduce yourselves and talk about the amazing things you are doing in the Canadian entrepreneurial ecosystem. So go for it.
We've all done that.
We're all done, yeah.
You've all done. Look at you. See, while I'm sitting there pushing buttons and figuring stuff out, you've all got this going on. So, okay, so I'm going to expand the conversation a little bit here. And I'm going to start, actually, Miryam, I'm going to start with you, nice. With all the good things that you are doing with LatAm startups. We've had a chance to meet at the Startup Canada Awards in the past 2 years ago, pre-COVID, and hopefully we can see each other again. So why don't we start off this? I'm going to ask each of you, tell us a bit about the specific programs or initiatives that you've been working on and that you are passionate about. So Miryam, why don't you start with telling a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so LatAm Startups started with, with the support of Startup Canada, and our dear friend Melanie was one of the biggest supporters of at the beginning of the organization back in 2014. So in 2016, we became a nonprofit organization, and we started to put together some programs for international startups. So we exclusively work with technology companies that are relocating either, their companies here in Canada or having second headquarters in Canada. So 2019, we become a part of the Startup Visa program. This is a federal program that helps international entrepreneurs to get their permanent residence so they can grow their companies here and go global. So we have been very proud, working with the technology community here in Toronto, and we have this point 4 different programs. And since 2017, we have helped over 100 startups to open business here in Canada.
Nice. So, Yvonne, why don't you tell us a little more about what you do and why you love to do it?
Oh my gosh. I am in change management, and I also call myself a change leadership advocate. Change leadership, the change leadership is all about how do you help professionals and organizations respond better and faster to change. And I would have to say, let me take you back to over 20 years ago, out of university, all bright-eyed, ready to take on the world. I got into my first job and I say, yay, this is my job for life. I'm going to be here. I made it. Mama, I made it kind of thing. And a few months into the role, I get that call into the office that says, sorry, your role no longer exists. Mm-hmm. And take it back a couple of months, I should have seen the writing on the wall. This was the .com boom. It was all about internet companies. Organizations were buying one organization or the other up, so there was a merger and acquisition where my organization was bought. But I did not see the writing on the wall. Everybody in my department had gone to one, left the organization, gone somewhere else. A lot of what we were doing in our department had gone, then I lived in England, had gone to Scotland, and I was living in London, but I still didn't read the writing on the wall until I was made redundant. I was laid off. And over the years, it really taught me to take control of my own career, because I realized that there was no manager, nobody, no organization that would be responsible for me as an individual. It was all about what I needed to do. So I became an entrepreneur within any organization that I was. I became that entrepreneur. It was all about, my career. Fast forward to a few years ago, we started to see the same thing: AI, robotics, fourth industrial revolution. There was so much disruption. And as somebody who was in change management, I would be speaking to people in organizations on the front line. People didn't know what was happening, but the people developing the technology knew what was happening. I would be in organizations where we're leading and driving change, and I could see the impact on when change was done wrong, the mental well-being of people, employees affected. If the change doesn't go right, people lose their jobs. You go into malls and you see dying off, so you see the economic devastation of when change isn't done right. So that really led us to finding the change leadership as an organization, where our objective is, how do we help professionals and organizations respond better and faster to change? How are they prepared that change is happening now? And that has just been expedited by the pandemic. In the last year, we have seen what it means to be able to respond to change better and faster, and what happens when you don't. It's no longer like, oh, okay, people lose their jobs. People die when change isn't done right. So that has only just fueled our, passion to say why change leadership is important as a skill. And that's why we do programs around it. We have courses, we have conferences, we have events where we're equipping and empowering any and everybody to be change leaders. Again, just to add one last thing, before you got this impression that leadership or change leadership was about the person at the top, the in quote leaders or managers being responsible for leading and driving the change. Now it's changing with the future of work, with disruption, organizations flattening. Change leadership is a responsibility for everyone across every level of the organization. And that, again, is why change leadership is such a passion for us, because we need people to wake up to that call.
Right. You make some great points there. This notion that traditionally, formally, change was this top-down kind of approach and you had to wait for it. Rather now it's a combination, it's a hybrid, right? With a bottom-up grassroots and people pushing and things that have changed from COVID. We can't put those genies back in the bottle, and everything's been propelled like a decade forward. Like we've all been put in a time machine, right? Whereas before, I know in education, I've with people working in that space, and whether it's elementary school, high school, post-secondary, it's like, well, maybe we'll do that in 2 or 3 years or slowly integrate that. It's like, you got to do it now, whether you like it or not. So with that, Giselle, I'd like you to jump in and perhaps expand on that conversation and how that applies to your work in the tech and capital markets and the initiatives that you're helping to drive change with.
Wow. I mean, that was an incredible listening. It's incredible. I think we can all agree that this last year has been definitely interesting, no shortage of interesting. We've seen some of the largest companies that we thought were staples to economic growth lose their shirts. We've seen a bunch of good money being thrown at bad deals. But for myself, as a serial entrepreneur since I was 12, everything that I've experienced is from the lens of an entrepreneur. So I'll share with you a little bit about the last 5 years, and then how an experience prior to that really introduced a new venture that I recently started. So now I'm a co-founder and CEO of Nishi Studio. So Nishi Studio is a 24-person software development corporation. We custom build enterprise mobile machine learning systems, mainly for venture-backed companies. We rebuilt old legacy systems for corporations, and we advise what I call big corps on how to integrate startups or early stage companies into their large structures, because they're very, very different functioning structures. Since 2017, and this is after my company, at the time I had a consulting company back in 2008, was a supplier to a firm for 6 years. In 2017, I was invited to become a partner and head of investment banking at this firm called Torren & Associates. And so and these two companies I'm still involved in, one is founder, one is partner. There I evaluate potential deals for the wealth management industry. And that's, very, very common. It's based on several factors: revenue, profit margins, client composition, capital structures, etc. And I'd say to date, I've completed transactions totaling about $5 billion in assets under management. So that's the current the last 5 years. However, in 2010, 2011, I had been unsuccessful in securing funding for my own tech startup. That's a long story in terms of what it was that we were building. We built it for 4 years, bootstrapped it for 4 years. But how that experience ended and what became a pivot to the software company today, that experience planted a seed in me. And that seed was, if we were having trouble in 2010, 2011, actually, we had built it for 4 years. So you're looking at around 2014, 2015. If we were having trouble gaining access to funding community, which is the VC community, which is traditionally, it's a very gated community. If we were having trouble accessing that community and getting funding, and we had, at the time, 12, and then it grew to 15,000 in MRR, which is monthly recurring revenue. We had the technology. We had a team of 12 developers. Like, we had all the things that would typically be viewed as an investable company, and we couldn't find funding. What that did is I thought to myself, how many other companies out there are like us that are doing all the right things but not getting access to capital? And so that was the one seed that was planted. But the other seed was, to me, it also meant that investors were leaving money on the table. The combination of those two, I always knew that I would launch a fund. But with everything that's happened in the last year and the number of phone calls I got, again, to date, I understand that I'm the only Black woman that owns a software company in Canada. The number of phone calls that I got from businesses of all kinds, primarily women, running different types of businesses and asking for thoughts and feedback and can you help me digitize my business? That followed by the George Floyd and what we've seen around the world, I thought to myself, I'm not going to wait 4 years to launch a fund. I'm going to launch it now. And so it's really a culmination of everything that I've done has really led to this moment. And now Matter Ventures is born. As of a few months ago, we started raising our fund. And I couldn't be more excited because I think we have a tremendous opportunity in front of us. Incredible companies out there that have been underinvested and are doing incredible things. So I'm very, very excited at this point in life to take my successes, invest my own capital alongside our investors, and back some incredible companies. So that's my background.
Wow, love it. Well, I certainly want to dig down into all the good things that you're doing there, but I'm just going to hold off on that for a second. And I want to bring Vickie back into the conversation here and just having a look at what you're doing with your business in the cosmetics industry. Some very interesting things. So I want to ask you the same question. It's like, what other, besides the business itself, it's like, what's your why, your purpose, those other initiatives that are very dear to you that kind of get you out of bed in the morning, especially during those, as an entrepreneur, those rough days, we have ups and downs and in between. So what is it that really fuels your fire with some of the initiatives and programs that you've touched yourself to?
This month only, I just wanted to quit 25 times. You know what I mean? This is part of the journey of being an entrepreneur. But like Giselle was saying, we've done it because we've been in business for the past 15 years. So we've created other companies. Now my baby is the cosmetic line. But beforehand, I started in business. So while I started, I was in the fashion industry. So you can imagine how small it was, like that. The circle was really, really small. And it was like a Black woman starting here in Quebec, which is it wasn't really, really open and diverse back then. So I was kind of like by myself. So imagine that, a young girl, like designing her own clothing line, which was criticized as very colored, very eclectic, but it was just because the media didn't really understand, because the market wanted my line. The market wanted what we wanted because I was a representation for them. They were so proud to have like a designer like me, an entrepreneur like me that just started on the market and, that represented us. So it was a rough path. Mm-hmm. So this led us back in 2012, where we were raised. We decided to bring back. We made our profits. We decided to give back to our community, because my why is to create wealth for our community. My why is for where I grew up, was a complete, I don't know if you know Saint Michel, Montreal North. This is one of the poorest cities in Canada, and where all the Black and the young kids and all those families that probably make $20,000 a year to survive, this is where it's happening. So they never have that structure or that help or that hand to help them come out of those neighborhoods. So that's why we decided it was time for us, after like a good 10 years, that we had to give back. So all our profits, because I have to tell you something, we knocked on doors for government, we knocked on doors for partners, anybody, big companies, private, all of them, name them. Nobody wanted to play with diversity back in 2012. So it scared them. They were like, yeah, we can come. We can see what you guys have to offer. But at the same time, they were not ready to partner and to invest to help other entrepreneurs or our community to level up. So that's why we decided, you know what, we're going to do it. We're going to do it ourselves. We took our own money and created those programs to help those entrepreneurs and those young kids in school having create other champions, role models by giving them different programs. We have various programs that we created our own self with our own people that believed. I call them my soldiers. Those are people. Those are people who believes in your speech, in your culture. They really want to see changes. Free. They totally did it for free for like a good 7 years. It's just 2 years ago that the government just started injecting funds to help this cause. You see? So we've created programs to startups to finance them in their businesses, to immigrants that just came here and they didn't have any places to go, how to start, how to find work. So far, we are the biggest incubator. It's called Groupe 3737 here in Canada. We have about 50,000 square footage of space created to help entrepreneur of the diversity. Sorry for my English, because I'm very passionate and it has to come out. Yeah. So we've helped so far more than 7 entrepreneurs, and we have about 50 companies that were created, because in the diversity world, there's so much talent. There's so much incredible companies that have been created. We're going to create, I'm telling you, from Montreal North, Saint Michel, Montreal, there's going to be created the next Facebook. Because why? Because we believed in them, because we put our own money to change the narrative. We are tired of the media talking about those young kids or those Black entrepreneurs that don't do anything. They're just doing drugs. They're just doing gangs. We need to change the narrative. And this is what it's all about. What concept is about creating a new life, a new narrative, and to create other champions and to make believe. We need to give them hope. Those young kids, they need to believe that they can too access to their success and create companies without just being in the entertainment business, which is probably 1%, or being an athlete. You know what I mean? So this is really the story. This is my why. I need to change the narrative. And I brought a new version in the cosmetic. It's the same thing as I was saying in the beginning. I need to create representation for women of the diversity, create another company that will take first place, but create other champion in the cosmetic business. So it's all related. My why is about creating wealth for our communities.
Wow. Wow. Impressive. I love it. You're doing such impactful work. And it just builds on what Yvonne was talking about earlier, rather than the kind of this top down waiting for something to happen. Maybe sometime it's like, you know what, just hitch your wagon to it to yourself and just start pulling. And that's exactly what you're doing.
You got to cry, Colin, and you got to be patient, and you got to still educate people. It's education. You got to educate them, because it took, last year, it took the George Floyd situation that finally the government said, hey, Groupe 3737, I think we can find a way to help those entrepreneurs, the Black community, because they're suffering during the pandemic. They are really suffering. So they injected 260 million across Canada with other initiatives to help Black entrepreneurs. And this is because we believed some change could have happened one day. So I'm happy to share this news with you.
Amazing. Yeah, I can feel the passion coming out just a little bit there, just a bit. It's fantastic. Next question I want to put out there to all of you here, because this is a fireside chat without, okay, so just a chat, I suppose. As far, and you've touched on this kind of through the thread of your conversations already in the narrative here, but as far as obstacles and challenges that you've all endured as women, especially as women of color, talk about that a little bit. I know it's a bit of an open-ended question, but just put anything out there. You can get as uncomfortable and real, or to speak your truth as you want. Just go for it. Actually, Miryam, I'll talk to you. So first, so why don't you jump in there as far as when you first started, or even along the way? What have been the big challenges that have really you've had to overcome?
Yeah, well, as everyone else, it's kind of like having people to believe in you and believing what you can do and believe that you actually have the knowledge to help other people. So I remember, at the beginning saying that I wanted to bring international entrepreneurs to Canada. People were like, why? Like, why Canada? And why is that this is a thing now? From the beginning, like I think that the biggest challenge for me was to understand that there are people that want to work with you, and there are some other people that don't want to work with you, and you shouldn't spend time with those people, trying to convince them that you can do something. To just start working with those that, they believe in your idea and they believe in what you can do for them, and then just start building up from there. And it was an incredible response at the beginning when, we launched the first call to bring international entrepreneurs here. And, several entrepreneurs actually filled out the form, and we received the first cohort, and we finally went to the mayor's office, with people that were actually looking at them and saying, okay, so there are people in other countries that are willing to invest money into the city, willing to hire, local talent and do stuff. And I think, in general, people knew that, but they didn't know the potential that the country has. And I think, I don't know, I see it as me as an entrepreneur, as a newcomer. I see the potential of Canada. I see the potential of the ecosystem, but I don't necessarily feel that from the ecosystem itself. I think, Canadians are still not knowing how much this country can do, really. Like, we have to realize this is the second largest tech corridor in the world. And it was for me very difficult to kind of convince people in here that you actually have something good. So up to today, I still have these conversations with many people. I still have to prove myself every time when I'm talking with federal government and when I'm talking with different other people. Just for example, just a few days ago, it was an officer that contacted me for a specific event that is happening here in Toronto. And he said, well, we work just with 100% Canadian incubators or accelerators that are hosting Canadian startups. And we're like, yeah, so the companies that we bring here, they are Canadian startups. They become Canadian after they incorporate companies here, and they are doing everything. He said, well, just they have to be 100% Canadian. And I'm like, okay, so you have a second-class Canadian companies, is what you're telling me? Is it still difficult to convince people about, receiving international startups? Sometimes I don't see it much as me being a woman or, woman of color per se, but it's more like the perception that it has been driving the ecosystem by different type of leaders, and there is not that many newcomers or women of color or whatever you want to call it, actually driving initiatives like this. So the challenge is still there. Is taking some, let's say, being brave and continue working and continue, getting support from people that believe in us. And actually 2020 was a very bad year for the world because of the pandemic and everything. It was an amazing year for us, as a community, financially speaking and everything. We could prove that international startups, even during the pandemic, wanted to come here, still wanted to invest in the country. So with all the challenges that we have faced from the beginning up to now, this is, it feels very good to see that people are still, willing to do this move and willing to create companies and willing to invest in the country. So, I'm pretty sure that we are going to continue facing challenges, but I'm more than happy to take them.
Yeah. And what I love about all four of you here is you've maybe years ago you just kind of waited your turn, and we're hoping for things to change, and now you don't ask for permission, you don't ask for forgiveness, you just get shit done.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Hopefully I can say that here. Like you four are just like total badasses here, and in the best possible way. And we need more of you. We need a cloning machine to clone all four of you here and kind of place you all over the country here. Because it is about raising awareness also, which takes time and hard work. And you all put that hard work in. So, Yvonne, I want to put it over to you. Similar question there as far as, challenges and obstacles, and if that ties into, an unfortunate world of racial bias and the subtlety of that, which, as I've learned, can be even more damaging and harmful than explicit racism to be a barrier. So perhaps you can tell us some of your challenges and obstacles along the way.
Oh, Lord. I say, oh, Lord, because it does exist, but I have chosen not to look at it, because when you start to choose to look at it, that's when it starts to hold you back. Because I almost want to say, no, I haven't faced anything, but that's just because I put my blinders on to it. So that when the situation happens, I choose to not see it because I'm female or because of, my race. I just say, okay, it's an obstacle. Let's move forward. Because the minute you start seeing that obstacle, that's when you just realize there's nothing I can do about being female. There's nothing I can do about the color of my skin. So it becomes truly an obstacle. But when you don't see it as an obstacle, you keep on moving on. And the reason I know it exists is many years ago, I'm in this organization. So this is when I was in this role, and I was identified as one of the high performers in the role. And they had a few of the top guns from a different country come in, and they were like, okay, we're going to put our high performers in front of them, to have a seat at the table at the boardroom just to meet, some of the high performers. So I was identified as one of the high performers. So it coincided with our team meeting. So I go to that and I come back, and one of my colleagues say to me, well, where were you? We didn't see you. I said, oh, I was at so meeting. Oh, and she says, oh, you were selected as one of the token Black people to attend. And I was like, okay, now. It was one of my dog's back, but it was really to see that it existed. I mean, and to me, I see that was an opportunity for me to educate her. But, my character is like all those things that what of the dog's back, keep on moving, keep, focus on your goals. So I try not to see any of the challenges, but doesn't mean they do not exist. One of the challenges I would say for me is more maybe a challenge as an immigrant. So when I say a challenge as an immigrant, I find that if I look back to, where my country of origin, which is Nigeria, I did my primary school, secondary school there before I moved to England and then Canada. Those are the kind of places you form connections and networking connections, where if I go back now, I can easily see friends who are in certain types of positions. And let's call a spade a spade. Business, wherever you are in the world, it's about who you know. It's about the like, trust aspect. It's not to do with anything. It's just like who you know and who you trust. It's about likability. People like to do business with people they know, like, and trust. So it's easy for me to go to a friend who I went to secondary school with or school with and say, hey, I got this. They trust me. Vickie, if I came to you and I wanted to do something and we'd gone to school together, you'd known me all my life. You don't need to see a proposal to say, Yvonne's got this.
Absolutely.
So when you're an immigrant, you find that you have to keep on proving yourself. You have to pay more attention to your brand to show that you're reliable, you're trustworthy, type of thing. So those are the kind of challenges that you will find more like now as an immigrant person, to say, having those connections to build your business. So what would have been perhaps a little bit easier just because you built that network, because they say your network is your wealth, or your wealth is your network, one of those things. So that's been, a big challenge, and but nothing that we cannot overcome. We walk through it, we soldier on. And as a female, I would say for me is finding that balance for authenticity, where you have you're in your feminine strength as a woman, and not seen as a woman. Does that make sense? It's finding that balance. And I think one person that has done it so well, and I have to mention her name, but I would love if it was Canadian, but she has the Quebec roots, is Kamala Harris. Absolutely. She has stood in herself as a woman, and stood in herself in her authenticity, and stood in herself in her strength, and not had to play small to say, oh, she's a woman, so she should dress like this. She's a woman, she should do this. She shouldn't talk like this. She should do that, So that's a struggle that women also go through, where they try to shape you. And I dare say, maybe, I don't know if I should mention names, so please somebody correct me if I do, but I feel Hillary Clinton suffered a lot of that. There was always so much, there was so much PR and media, do this, be like this, sound like this, and do all of those things. So, and that's a struggle that a lot of women face, where we're trying to be who we may not be, or trying to find our strength and our voice, which we need to, because, there's a great book, Lean In, because we're naturally thought not to lean in. Good girls are not seen or heard. So the way we've been trained is to take a back seat, be nice, play nice, do all of those things that are not in the workplace. So even internally, we have that struggle with our mindset in terms of how we show up in order to be women leaders, women entrepreneurs, because the society hasn't created that space to do it historically and culturally.
Right. Giselle, I want you to kind of riff off of that and expand on that. I'm going to ask this question a little bit differently for you as far as obstacles and challenges, because it sounds like with you, it's like, well, I created my own fund. I overcame them by actually building the things that weren't out there that I needed back in the day. So how do you see for not only yourself, but also with the fund, let's use that as an example for overcoming challenges, especially for women, with women of color, just women overall as entrepreneurs and business owners, that you're helping facilitate change and transformation and overcoming obstacles and challenges through the work that you're doing. Perhaps you could talk about that a bit.
If it's specific to the fund, I'm going to, it's a jump off point from something Yvonne mentioned, especially, so I was born here. I'm a child of immigrants from Brazil. So I would say for the fund specifically, the entire structure of the fund is by design methodically built to support individuals like the examples Yvonne gave, immigrants. Like I always say, you know what, if you have the thickest accent and the darkest skin, let's hang. Let's do this. Let's build shit. Like that's because those are the obstacles that like traditionally the venture capital community has. I'm gonna say it. Either by neglect or by design, made it very difficult for these individuals to access capital. And so, you know, and you can apply that to finding a job or accessing capital. I think Canada is arguably one of the most beautiful countries in the world. We're 1 to 2 degrees separation from the rest of the world. So our knowledge base and the experience that we hold in a very small country in terms of size, like I think, 8% the size of the US. We have so much talent here. And the fact that immigrants come here, it's a selection process if you think about it. To Yvonne's point, your networks are left behind. Your family, in many cases, left behind. You arrive here with, as they say, with $1 and a dream. You don't have the networks here, and networks arguably are more valuable than capital, right? Mm-hmm. Arguably more valuable than capital. So when you take all those risks already, you arrive here already have taken risks that the vast majority of the world has not taken. That, to me, when I'm building a fund, and I liken entrepreneurship to a sport. And if the fund is like if we are scouting individuals to invest in, my number one draft picks are immigrants, women of color, Black women. Why? Because there's a self-selection process that we've already overcome. We've already decided that after all of that, we are still going to be entrepreneurs, which means we're required to rebuild our networks. We're required to start, bootstrapping is an understatement, with no capital, because bootstrapping oftentimes, if you were born here with 2 or 3 generations of wealth, that means you have access to friend and family rounds, or they have access to networks. So when you're coming from another country, you are truly starting from scratch. And so if you can bootstrap your way to building something that's investable, we really want to have a discussion with you, because you have already proven things that people have not proven. You've taken on levels of risk that most individuals have not. And that, to me, that mindset, which is the backbone, I believe, to being an entrepreneur, you've already won. And so you've essentially already won. The difference is you just don't have maybe a more elegant network to help you land anchor clients and to help you bridge partnerships that would then increase the value of your company. So if we can give you access to those networks and capital, you're fucking unstoppable. That's the way I see it. Nice. At least that's the way I see it. And so I know all of this started with, what obstacles we come across. And for me, adversity, if played well, is your strongest tool. Nobody can take that away from you. And so if you're going to use adversity as a tool and you've gone this far, I think you've already won. Whether you go for venture capital or not, whether you get outside capital or not, in my world, you've already won. So when you ask specifically as it relates to the fund, I'll close by saying this. Traditionally, the venture capital community is structured in such a way where if you've created a startup, you've got your pitch deck, you've practiced it a million times, you're saying all the right things, you have some revenue, you have some traction, all those things that I had in 2010. When you go to their websites, one of the things they say is like, how are you referred to us? Please let us know who referred you to our fund. And it's usually only then that you get to present to the people that are holding the purse strings. And to me, that is so backwards, because again, we've already proven we can get there with absolutely nothing. And now you're still asking me to understand and get to know somebody in your network who, by design, I haven't been given access to. So it's almost like you're asking me for a referral to a network I've never been given access to. And until I find that individual, I'm not going to get access to the capital. And to me, that is as backwards, absolutely backwards as it gets. And that's why I'm saying, you know what? If you have a good company, you've built something, you've figured that out, you've overcome a bunch of obstacles, you've come from another country, you've already won. We want to talk to you all day. And so those are my number one draft picks. And that's, I'm gonna stop there, because you'll box and I'll just keep going. But all the women on this panel, if we all listen, like, we're hearing the same thing. It's like there's obstacles there, yeah, but I almost believe that paying attention to those obstacles is a luxury we don't have.
Yeah,
luxury we actually don't have, because if we start paying attention to those obstacles, we already have so many obstacles in front of us. That then just becomes an additional distraction. So we acknowledge it. It's right there. It happens every day in some way, shape, or form, but you have to put it aside and you have to keep going. And that's the only way. It's not like it's not an optional way. That is the only way that I think everybody on this panel has come to where they've arrived. So
Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, please do.
So I acknowledge everything you say. I just wanted people to say, preach it. Thank you for sharing that. That just, really
because we speak the same language, We've been through very similar situations, all of us.
And what you're sharing with us here reinforces a couple of things that I've learned over the years. And people ask me when they're starting out in entrepreneurship, it's like, well, what qualities or character traits do I need? And as we know, those can be built. So like a muscle, you can get stronger. But as you've talked about, Giselle, a lot of the people that you connect with, they've been battle hardened just through life, right? Through overcoming adversity, becoming more resilient, becoming more empathetic and curious, and all those elements, those character traits as a leader and as a successful entrepreneur. And all four of you certainly embrace that. I can see you exude that and amplify that in the people that you connect with. So I consider it an honor to have a chance to connect with all of you and hear your stories on that front. So I do want to change the question a little bit here for you, Vickie. Hopefully Melanie's okay with this. If she knows me well enough to what I do, I will freestyle it a little bit here and kind of go off script. So rather than just focusing on kind of the opportunities and the obstacles and the challenges, when you've touched on a lot of those, and Saint-Michel, and the work that you're doing, as far as connectivity, because one thing we know why we have events like this, and thank you again, Melanie, for spearheading this, is the fact that women make up 51% of the population of the world. And surprise, surprise, you do not get 51% of the funding. You do not get 51% of anything, right? And the statistics are grim as far as venture capital, like under 10%. As far as the money you get, the funding rounds you have, is it 3%? There you go. And we all know that women do more with less. You are just good for you're a good investment, rather than most of the men out there. So. Vickie, with that little kind of preamble I had there, perhaps you can expand on the opportunities that you are helping in raising awareness and also helping facilitate with the fine work that you're doing in your community. Hope you're muted there.
Sorry, what's the question for me?
No, that was for Vickie in that case.
That's for Vickie, right?
There we go.
I think she may be having some connection.
Yeah, I think she may be a bit frozen there. So, okay, we will circle back. I know we only have a few minutes left here. So actually, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to open it up to all of you to have a discussion here quickly. And that is, amplifying the signal, making more connections. You talked about, connectivity is so crucially important, and we are getting better. We're going in the right direction, but there's so much work to do. So for the federal government, provincial government, organizations, just the general public at large, what work needs to be done that can help bring these things together quicker to raise awareness so that we can get to equity quicker than we're going? So I'll just open that up there. What is the kind of low hanging fruit or the best things that we can do in the next year or so to help?
You guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Vickie.
There you are.
There we go. I think we lost you a little bit. So I'll simply put it out there. So what work?
Because I can't hear anybody.
Locally, nationally, and provincially to raise awareness and get towards equity sooner. So I'll just put it out there to everybody here to jump in.
I think I have been having this conversation sometimes with Melanie and some other people in the ecosystem, and sometimes I feel like there is a bunch of funding from the government just to help initiatives, but I feel like sometimes that funding goes to the big organizations and not to the small organizations. And sometimes we really need help, the small organizations, because we are creating community. We are accessing to unrepresented communities as well. And, sometimes it takes a while for the government to actually trust that small organizations can do a good job in this area. So if you are putting like some funding and the big organizations are taking the big part of this pie, then it's not really the funds or the connections are not arriving to these other small organizations that we are basically started to work with our nails, and we are still working kind of with our nails. So I think from that part, the government, either the federal government or the local government, needs to not just hear the small organizations, but also fund the different initiatives that we have. Because we can do better. We know how to bootstrap. We know how to do things around. We have done it for a while. And I believe that we can do a lot with some resources, additional resources that we can put together. So we can access to more people and educate and also help to connect, more people in the ecosystem. So create more opportunities as well.
Got it. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to jump in and talk about how they'd like to see us be able to connect and raise awareness and make all your efforts more equitable and valuable as quickly as possible?
I'm going to make one quick comment, and it might be out of line, but that's the girl that I am.
Go for it. Bring it on.
And I'm only saying this because you mentioned government a few times. Be it government or be it large corp. And this is not to take away from the term help, but I believe things will only actually change when they realize that they're actually not helping us. We're helping them. And so keeping in mind the immigrant numbers have gone up. There's been a greater desire to allow more immigrants into the country. I'm sure it's not all for, the warm fuzzies. It's because immigrants actually bring value to the growth of the economy. Economies get spurred at the consumer level. Spending is what causes economies to move. If people don't have the capital in their hands to spend, economies cease to move and grow. And so if you place more capital in the hands of those that are building businesses and creating jobs, then that's when your economy grows. So rather than looking at it from the lens of, well, what should we do to help? Perhaps the question is, what should you do to help Canada? For you to help Canada grow and continue to have its position on the global stage, which is a very favorable position from a political standpoint. It's a very favorable position from that we get along, because we, for the most part, compared to other parts of the world, we're doing incredibly well in diplomacy. One area where we're lacking is capital injection in businesses, because those businesses create jobs, and those jobs allow people to have money that they can spend. I'm not an economist, but arguably, I don't know who else would come in here and say that if throwing more money, big money at larger corporations, and it's not trickling down to the small businesses and to employ the small employers, which are smaller businesses, we're missing an incredible opportunity. Canada is missing an absolute incredible opportunity to continue to grow its presence on the global stage. So it's not about helping us. We are here to help you, but you need to provide capital for that to happen. And so that's my view. This is not a help question. Canada needs to invest in itself, and to do that, it needs to invest in the people that are on this panel and many more that are out there taking on the risks, leaving their families back home, leaving those networks back home, choosing Canada as their country, proudly, by the way, because I know very few Canadians that will say this is not the most beautiful country. Invest in them. They will help the company grow and continue to put Canada on the map. So that's my perspective.
No, I love that. And thanks for sharing that. I know we only have 2 more minutes left here, so I do want to put this out to you. So for our attendees today, women entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs that are maybe wantrepreneurs, they're thinking about it, but once again, they don't have that courage or they don't know that first step. They may be overwhelmed right now. Perhaps all of you can quickly just touch on what you would recommend to them as a first step, whether it's building community or connecting, of how they can, besides awesome events like this, how they can build that confidence to build those relationships to then take that first step on their entrepreneurial journey. So I'll start. Actually, Vickie, if I think we have you back here, maybe you can start with that.
I think I'm good. Do you hear me?
We can.
I don't see anybody though. I just hear the voices and that's it. But it's okay.
Okay. So perhaps you could recommend to attendees here that are thinking about entrepreneurship as far as.
Oh my gosh, there's so many like organization out there. Honestly, right now, internet is the best place to get connected. There's LinkedIn where you can find like amazing connections out there, like the true people, depending on your domain, depending on what exactly your field, you can knock on doors. But there's examples like Groupe Concept, which is groupeconcept.com. If you need help starting off in business, is the best way, because we have amazing programs for startups, which is going to help you build your portfolio and to get you ready to get out there and to start your businesses. Amazing.
I want to put it around the table. We are at the top of the hour. I don't want us to get cut off here, so I do want to wrap up. This has been an amazing discussion. I have just learned so much. I consider it an honor to allow for me to be part of this. So I want to thank Vickie, Miryam, Yvonne, Giselle. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, sharing your truth, and helping to empower women entrepreneurs across the country here to build that resilience and take that next step in their journey. So I want to thank you all for participating today. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the invitation. Bye.
All right.
Colin, thank you. And then Melanie and Adit, thank you so much.